So good evening. Welcome to the Arcata City Council meeting. I have my thing on. Good evening. Welcome to the Arcata City Council meeting. This meeting is teleconference meetings is available, and today's date is February 17th. And the City Council meeting is being held in a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconferencing access via Zoom. So the land acknowledgement. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot people. The land that Arcata rests on is known as, in the Wiyot language, as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous people from the lands and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders past and present, as well as future generations, and this acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narrative of settlers' colonialism. If you please join me for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, before we proceed tonight with the meeting, I would like to address some recent concerns regarding behavior during the public comment portion of our City Council meetings. The City Council deeply values the First Amendment right of our community members to express their views. Public participation is a cornerstone of our decision-making process, and we encourage open dialogue during our meetings. However, it's important to recognize that our meetings are structured to carry out the important work of governing the City of Arcata. In order to maintain and ensure that we accomplish our business efficiently, we must address any disruptive behavior that hinders the purpose of these proceedings. I want to make it clear that any individual engaging in disruptive behavior will first be given a warning. If that behavior continues after the warning, the individual may be asked to leave the meeting. And disruptive behavior includes, number one, speaking beyond the allotted time. Number two, discussing matters that are not relevant to the agenda or outside the jurisdiction of the City Council. Three, making threats against members of the council or the public. Four, engaging in personal attacks, insults, or using slanderous language that disrupts the meeting. We ask all speakers to be respectful to one another and to remember these proceedings are focused on the important work of local government, and maintaining an orderly and respectful environment is essential for our function to work effectively as a City Council. Thank you for your understanding. So now we will move into roll call.
Mayor Stillman.
Present.
Vice Mayor White.
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Under ceremonial matters, we have a proclamation for 2025 in February as Spay Day USA, and Councilmember Schaefer will read that. Thank you.
Recognizing Spay Day USA. Whereas just 2 unaltered cats and their offspring can make between 10,000 and 40,000 more cats in 10 years, and 2 unaltered dogs and their offspring can make between 15,000 and 60,000 more dogs in 10 years. And whereas an estimated 6.3 million homeless kittens, puppies, cats, and dogs enter animal shelters in the U.S. every year, a little over half of these animals are adopted. Due to the lack of money and space, approximately 1 million are put down, even though many of these animals were healthy, adoptable, and often the offspring of beloved family pets. And whereas animal control programs aimed at coping with the millions of homeless cats and dogs in the U.S. cost taxpayers billions of dollars annually, preventative spaying and neutering has been shown to drastically reduce pet overpopulation. And whereas veterinarians, humane societies, national and local animal protection organizations, and private residents will join together on Spay Day USA 2025 to spay and neuter tens of thousands of animals and raise funds towards spaying and neutering even more pets. And whereas ending cat and dog overpopulation is a major priority of the Companion Animal Foundation, Critters Without Litters, Railroad Pals Rescue, the Sequoia Humane Society, Humboldt County Animal Control, Friends for Life, Humboldt Spay and Neuter Network, and Miranda's Rescue. These local organizations work tirelessly to educate our community about the importance of spaying and neutering your pets. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes February 19th, 2025 as Spay Day USA and encourages all community members to end pet overpopulation by having their own animals spayed or neutered or sponsoring another cat or dog spaying or neutering through one of our hard-working local animal organizations. Dated today and signed by Mayor Alex Stillman. And do we have some folks here from Companion Animal to accept this? Didn't know if they confirmed or not. All right, well, we will get this to those folks, and thank you.
And thank you very much. So our next proclamation is in recognition of human trafficking awareness, and that proclamation will be read by Councilmember White.
Thank you. In recognition of human trafficking awareness, whereas the United States was founded upon the principle that all people are created with the inalienable right of freedom and added the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, making slavery illegal, and whereas slavery within the United States today is most often found in the form of human trafficking, which weakens our social fabric, increases violence and organized crime, and debases our humanity, and whereas victims of human trafficking are typically forced to work in various forms of labor exploitation, including but not limited to commercial sex acts, drug processing, and distribution and other services induced through force, fraud, coercion, and whereas, due to its isolating nature, many individuals locally and across the globe are unaware that trafficking exists in Humboldt County and neighboring counties, and whereas it is estimated that more than 27.6 million men, women, and children around the world are victims of human trafficking. And whereas California is the state with the highest rate of human trafficking, and whereas indigenous trafficking is at an all-time high, and whereas the Serotomus International of Arcata, serving the Mad River area, and the EPI, Empower, Protect, and Invest, are working to abolish human trafficking through education, advocacy, and collaboration. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of City of Arcata hereby calls upon the citizens of Arcata to recognize the vital role that they can play in ending all forms of trafficking and to support the Seroptimus International Clubs of Humboldt County and EPI as they raise awareness through education and other efforts to stop human trafficking, dated February 19th, 2025, by our Mayor Alexandra Stillman. And today we will have, it'll be Sharon Sly, for the president of Seroptimus International of Arcata, and Tina Taylor of Empower, Protect, and Invest.
Thank you. I want to thank City Council for their proclamation last year and the fact that you put us on the agenda for this year. We appreciate that very much. As you know, it's very vital. We still have to bring up awareness on human trafficking. I don't know if you know who we are as Seroptimus, but we've been in Arcata for 71 years now, and we are part of an international organization, and Seroptimus International is an NGO in the United Nations. So we do have an impact, and we do have a lot of women around the world who are speaking up and speaking out. And Seroptimus, the focus for our group is for social and economic empowerment of women and girls. And as such, we raise money and then support projects in our local community. And our primary goal is education and training, so we have awards for that. But I'd like to introduce this year Katrina Taylor, or Tina, and she is the director of EPI, and her co-worker here is Eddie, right?
Edri, I'm the co-awareness director of EPI.
Okay, so.
Hi, everyone. I am the awareness director of an organization that's based right here in Humboldt County called EPI. We work tirelessly to answer a hotline that is local here to Humboldt County. There is a national hotline, but for survivors, if they want some help right now, that 800 number seems kind of off and distant. And so we have a local number that they can call right now. And it is answered almost 24 hours a day. We do have jobs, so it is answered by us. But when we first started this about 8 years ago, there was many people that said, "Is Humboldt County really have a problem?" And the answer was yes. We've been working tirelessly to educate the community, to bring awareness to individuals who didn't believe that it was happening here. But more importantly, we're taking education into schools. We're training law enforcement to be able to be identifiers and to be able to be first responders, because a lot of times the prevention is in planting a seed. And so what is that seed? You're planting a seed where individuals are vulnerable, and those individuals who want to exploit, those that are survivors, are looking for those places where they can exploit an individual. So are they hungry? Do they need attention? Do they need somewhere to stay? Maybe they just need someone to talk to them. And so it is up to us to collaborate. And I thank you for collaborating with Seroptis and ourselves to be able to bring awareness to this issue, because it is happening here in Humboldt County. Thank you.
So we have a report from a commission, and this next item is commission or committee reports. And we'll receive the annual report from the Planning Commission, and our chair for the Planning Commission, Scott Davies, is present. Thank you for joining us this evening, Scott.
Thank you, Commission. I appreciate the chance to come before you and just give a brief update on what we have been up to this year, all of which, of course, you've been engaged with. I decided this evening that it would be dreary to read you reports and things that you've all already heard and read, so I turned my update into a poem for you this evening. With steady hands throughout the year, we've shaped Arcata with an open ear. Through hearings long with voices bright, we've weighed each choice both day and night. The L Street corridor stood tall, a space reclaimed by public call, a path for bikes, for feet, for art, a beating pulse, Arcata's heart. No traffic roar, no streets run wide, just trees and trails where all abide. But elsewhere change, we hope, comes quick, taller buildings, brick by brick. For renters longing for a space, for workers needing just a place, for students bound to school's demand, for families grasping housing's hand. Yet homes for all still seems so few, a challenge vast, but not brand new. The housing gap spreads deep and wide, a rift we cannot brush aside. For those with wealth, the choice is clear, a hillside home, a view held dear. But middle incomes feel the squeeze, with options scarce and climbing fees. Lower earners face the worst, with rising rents, a homeless curse. The shelters fill, the wait lists grow, a place to sleep. Where can they go? And yet beyond the price and land, another struggle is at hand. New people come, but turn away, for housing's bleak, they cannot stay. Teachers sought, but where's their bed? Doctors called, yet left instead. A town so rich in heart and light, yet lacking homes, it isn't right. Still forward strides define our path, a bold new plan, a grand aftermath. With council's trust and voices weighed, a gateway vision we have laid. A signature step, a guiding chart, a modern plan with homes at heart. With state mandates pressing near, we planned with vision, not with fear. Inclusionary zoning set the stage for housing fair at every wage. With density bonuses and state demands, we built a plan with steady hands, yet not just rules, but hearts aligned, for community benefits well designed. Parks and paths, a space that's light, public art, and local rights. The plaza shifts, it learns, it grows, a space where local spirit flows. New scissor gates now line the way to keep storefronts secure, they say. Yet still it hums with life anew, with markets, music, voices true. A gathering place, both old and free, the heart of town for all to see. With Cal Poly Humboldt by our side, our future paths are intertwined. Housing, transit, climate plans, all shaped by our collective hands. The students, workers, campus needs inform the work, inspire the deeds. A town and school that rise as one to build a home for years to come. Yet oceans rise, the tides encroach, a swelling sea, a ghostly coach. New zoning laws, a cautious stand to guard our homes, to save our land. Community voices, strong and wise, have shaped these plans with watchful eyes. Your comments forged each new revision, ensuring growth aligns with vision. And so we march, the work not done, a future shaped by everyone. With heart and care, our path is drawn. Arcata builds, its soul lives on.
Well, that's quite a statement. Thank you so much.
That's more or less what we've been up to for the past year.
Well, thank you so much for.
You've been with us the whole way, so I feel like it's not entirely news.
No, it covered everything that you've been working
Trying to,
on.
yeah. Thank you.
Very much appreciate
I
it.
feel like we should add that to the general plan at the front.
Yeah, there you go.
We could definitely do that. That's a very good idea, Meredith. Are there any questions for our planning commissioner, chair? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming this evening. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you went into creating the poem for us.
And we'll expect one next time, too. Will we be getting another poem for the next report? A trend.
So we have council and staff reports, and our first item is receive a Arcata Police Department 2024 year-end activity report from Lieutenant Todd Dockweiler.
I don't know if I can compete with that last one, though. So I'm Todd Dockweiler. I'm the investigations commander at Arcata PD, and I had a kind of pinch hit here on the annual update, so we'll go ahead and get started on it. So really starting off is just some crime statistic numbers with the total number of incidents listed at 38,000. And so as you go through, each one of these lower numbers is the increase from year over year. So incidents up pretty dramatically. And as you kind of go through this, I guess to help digest this a little bit, the reason I think that you're seeing that large of an increase in our total incidents, if you go down, you'll look at officer-initiated activity, almost doubled. And that's a product of staffing. The more officers we have on the street, the more contacts, the more traffic stops, enforcement activity that's occurring. That's what is captured in officer-initiated activity, and that almost 7,000 activity increase. It coincides with why you're seeing such a large uptick in total incidents. Some of the other things to note on this is really some things that I think probably not everyone realizes are occurring. Building checks, 3,000 building checks over the last year. And so these are officers stopping at businesses during closed business hours and just doing security checks. And I'm sure some folks that have businesses have found the business check cards slid under the door, just to let folks know that, in those down moments, officers are going around and just doing security checks. Total cases taken, again, up nearly 1,000 from last year, but kind of the same reason, right? We just had a lot more officers on the street this year than we did last year. And that was really due in part to some of the generous hiring bonuses and retention bonuses that we were able to recruit in a lot more folks than we have in the past. Likewise, total arrests, similar pattern there. So the types of calls on the left that we're responding to, you see over 1,000 calls for welfare checks. And so those are, again, that's somebody calling in concerned about somebody else. So a lot of those are mental health related. Others are, someone's overdue, they can't get a hold of somebody from out of town, those sort of things. And so those make up the welfare checks. Disturbances, those are really, the squabbles that get reported, two people fighting, arguing, that sort of thing. Unwanted subjects, those are really calls oftentimes from businesses that there's someone at the business or in the business that they don't want there and they won't leave. And so we respond to that sort of thing. So suspicious circumstances is really just capturing all that other stuff that we're not sure what it is, but you get dispatched to it and it may have ended up in some sort of a crime or not, but it's just categorized kind of generally. And audible alarms, over 500 alarms, and these are predominantly, closed businesses that have alarms. The vast majority of these are accidental activations or malfunctions, but it does contribute to a lot of the call volume. Serious crimes, and this is just to kind of give an idea of, what kind of felony type crimes have been occurring the last year. Again, this year, which we're glad to see, 0 homicides this year. Felony assaults, we're just about on par as with robbery, rape. Theft's up a bit, but not significantly year over year. A lot of times this is kind of an interesting thing to look at. So these are crimes by location. So these are kind of the top 10 most responded to locations in the city. And so these are responses that are not generated by the officer, but we're called to that location. And obviously 736 F Street, well, that's the police department. So that always comes out as number one, right? But from there, you have kind of spread around. Obviously there's quite a few in Valley West. 801G, that's obviously the plaza. So you can kind of get a sense, 5,000 Valley West, 600 F Street, those are our shopping centers. That's Safeway Complex and the Ray's Complex. A lot of calls for service at both of those locations. And that's everything from, again, back to those unwanted subjects, petty theft, just a myriad of different kind of calls. But those locations do generate a lot of calls. There's some that are a little less obvious, Highway 101, Samoa Boulevard. We end up with a lot of typically like camping related calls through that corridor. And, sometimes we get a lot of welfare checks there too for folks that are laying on a sidewalk or something of that nature. So there's quite a few in that area. So kind of going to what's occurred for us over the last year. We hired 9 additional officers last year. And again, that was really, our ability to attract folks, right, through those different incentives. We're fully staffed for upwards of 15 minutes. Pretty typical, right? I mean, at any given time, we're going to have one. I think currently we have 2 folks that are out with duty-related injuries that are long-term. We average about 1 at any moment. And then there's just that, natural attrition that occurs throughout the year. So we haven't really lost to other agencies this year, which that's been really nice to see. And I think some of that has come back to kind of retention, things that we have, and the council, again, has added. It's been really helpful. So we have our Arcata Community Outreach Team. We'd started that, had to pause that for a minute, staffing. That is back up and fully staffed again, except one of the folks assigned to that is out on a long-term injury. So our investigations bureau is fully staffed again. That's been really nice. As we go forward on staffing, we're continuing with recruitment. We're anticipating 3 retirements this year, so that's pretty significant for us. As I know you've heard in the past, this turnaround time for us is about 1.5 years from the time we start process on someone until we have someone that is working on their own. So it takes a long time. You have to get started early, and we're in the process of doing that to account for those retirements. We're also looking, as we go forward, at some different alternative response options that we can incorporate. And And those are going to, of course, take staff, and trying to look at the best way to do that and the most cost-effective way to do that. As some of you, I'm sure, are aware, MIST is no longer available to us. That was a county program that has been absorbed, so we don't have that option. So we are looking towards, replacements for that. So I touched a minute ago on our community outreach team. So we were able to get a sergeant permanently assigned for that. That's Luke Scown. Kind of under that umbrella of ACOT are the ambassadors, and speak to them in a second. And really working with the homeless service providers. So just some quick, bullet points on ACOT. Last year, just ACOT handled 2,300 calls for service, and working with environmental services, John Shelter, some of those other programs, 31,000 pounds of trash was removed really from green spaces. So this is encampment removal. And there are element that works with environmental services and others to achieve that. They also work closely with Arcata House and other service providers in securing services and housing. So this is an element of an alternative response of that group trying to connect folks. So it's not just the enforcement element, it's also trying to get services. And so really you're looking to resolve whatever the issue is, through really, less traditional means. And they've been pretty effective at that. So again, the community ambassadors fall under that ACOT program. And I know everybody sees them out there picking up trash, 4,000 buckets of trash last year. That is a ton. I mean, it really does make a difference. But in addition to that, and I think this is less known or less seen, 322 wellness checks. So they go around, and if they see folks that look like they can need connection to services or just need a check-in, they do a lot of that for us, and it really does alleviate some of that burden on patrol on that day-to-day basis, and so they've been helpful on that. And then, one of the, I think, premises of the program was really that citizen assist component, right? Whatever that might be, tourists, where's a good place to eat? Well, where are the hotels? And so they've logged last year almost 600 of those. And juvenile diversion, another program that is under that other umbrella. And this last year, intervention, substance abuse resources, they provide, counseling, connection to resources and services, and they worked with 94 families last year, which is a pretty substantial number. And some of that, and really one of the projects or programs that's been the most successful and the best received with them has been the Parent Project and Living Solutions classes. We get a lot of calls about those, and those seem to work pretty well. And we have really seen a reduction in calls for service from families that have completed those programs. Other things that we've had going on this last year, we held a safety fair open house, which was really coincided with North Country Fair, which worked out really well because you had a lot of folks in town and a lot of people, in that downtown area that might not have made the trip solely to come check out APD, but since they were downtown, that was a very popular event for us. We've kind of revised the Cops on Campus program, which it simply is just officers signing up for a school that is in their beat, and just stop in once in a while, just connect with staff, with students, and of course that has to, be done through the lens of, is that something that individual school is looking for? And most of them have said, yeah, we want to do that. So we've re-engaged in that. And so that's the update that I had, and obviously any questions that I can answer.
Thank you very much for that report. Council members, would you have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yes.
I actually just read today before I came here that the Transportation Safety Committee was thinking about, lowering the speed limit on some of our roads. And I was just hoping that maybe next time someone does this presentation that we could maybe talk about how many speeding tickets that we've given, or some roadside incidents. I'd be interested to hear. I mean, I have seen a lot of APD out and about, which I appreciate. I just love to hear some specifics on that.
Yeah, so I mean, what I can tell you is that over the last year, 2,800 traffic stops were made in the city. And when you look at the population of the city, that's a lot. And, you know, not all of those are speed related. A lot of them are equipment violations, you know, expired registration, that sort of thing. But I think what we have seen is just the presence of somebody driving by, seeing, you know, someone pulled over makes you think a little bit more about your speed, right? So a lot of times it's just that presence that achieves kind of the goal of those safer speeds.
I appreciate that. I have one more. So I know that there has been a lot of feedback from a lot of community members that they have perhaps been experiencing hate crimes or incidents. Do you have a suggestion on how the public, how they can report them, or how ABD can help with that?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think that it's a pretty simple ask from us. Call us. So a lot of times we're hearing these second, third hand. They're emailing council members, but nobody is contacting us. So if somebody thinks that that's happening, I guess I would advocate for them to start with us, and we can kind of walk them through that that process of, is this a hate crime? Is this a hate incident? Right? That's probably the most common confusion, and we get a lot of questions on that. So I think we're able to provide probably a better explanation of that to folks and really give them what their options might be. If it does not rise to the criminal level, there's still other options out there. There's civil remedies. There's a ton of organizations that are set to help, and we have connections to those resources. So what we would like to see is contact us. Let us know.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And also just wanted to say I've also received a lot of really positive feedback about how the plaza looks. I really appreciate that as well. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that very extensive report. Will this be available on the website, hopefully?
We could probably do that, yeah.
Or something?
Yeah, we can put something up.
Okay, and I was curious, now that we've lost mist, which I understand why, it seems like Arcata does fill some of that gap with the community ambassadors, the homeless service providers. Is that, I mean, we're still looking, but it seems like
Right.
it's something for sure.
Yeah, and that's been part of the push in that direction, right? To get the ACOT guys out there, to get the ambassadors. And I don't think maybe initially the ambassadors were conceived to fill that role, but it's a role that a lot of them have asked about, and they're like, hey, can we get more involved with this? So they've been great. Obviously, they're limited, you know, to their range. It's mostly that downtown area, but yeah, ACOT's the other piece, and you know, the Sergeant Scown, I think a lot of you probably know him. He heads up ACOT, and he really has great connections with service providers, which was the intent. I still think long term we want to get something that's you know, I guess more dedicated to that alternative response.
Sure, and
But in
people
the
that are
short run-
qualified social worker
Right.
to de-escalate before
Yeah.
we have to.
And we've looked at a number of models on that, you know, and we're going through that process, and I think we will have something, you know, forthcoming on that.
And we're looking forward to hopefully getting that out in Valley West. The juvenile diversion program, thrilled that you guys are doing that parent project and even more about Loving Solutions. I got to do the parent project, and I'm thrilled that you guys are doing it bilingual when you can. We currently only have one juvenile or diversion counselor, or do we have two now?
So right now we have one.
Okay.
So
Well-
we had a vacancy and that's not yet been filled.
Okay, but we will be filling it, not eliminating that position.
That
Wait and see.
I'm not sure of right now.
Okay. And then I was looking at location, which you pointed out, a lot of it is happening in Valley West. The 500 Valley West Boulevard, is that the shopping center?
5,000 Valley West is a shopping center, correct?
Okay, and then the 4975, which had 337 incidents, is,
That's West Village.
okay, and then 4701? which
That's the
one?
Grove.
Okay, so there's a slew. I was able to get a hold of a Valley West report, and according to what I was sent by APD, there was over 6,700 Valley West calls in the recent report. And mind you, this only reflects what is reported. Just being out there, I could call you all day, but then I can't get anything done. And I just want to say that, first of all, things are definitely getting better. There's more work to be done, of course,
yeah.
but I do want to commend that. It doesn't look like safe parking or KOA parking lot out there anymore. And I think that really helps the shopping center. So you guys are doing a great job. I really appreciate that. Much to my dismay, there's, Kuna, the Resilient Hub, just got a rock thrown at the window when there were small children present. A couple Sundays ago, over $500 worth of damage. So we're going to be putting up cameras and being more proactive. I did have a couple questions or some comments maybe. I was looking at the assaults. So there were 21 assaults reported. Assaults with a deadly weapon, there were only 4. That's good. Assault battery, 16. So a total of 41 assaults. And of
Right.
course, those are what is reported. So much of this goes unreported. Is that a high number? I'm just trying to, I don't really know how to compare it with previous years.
It's really not. So it's not a significant change. And, when you look at neighboring communities, that's I guess I would say is pretty average. Of those felony assaults, we've been fortunate, I guess, over this last year, not to have any that have ended worse.
Homicide, right?
Right, and so you go back and you look at previous years, and
Yeah.
typically, we'll have a couple, and so that's been a nice change.
Being fully staffed, I'm sure, helps too,
It's a
to
piece of it.
de-escalate before things get
Yeah.
really bad. And I noticed that these assaults, so we have a separate domestic violence reports, verbal, heard only, influence, driving under these other that's another topic. There were 72, if you want to add that to the 41, which domestic violence assaults kind of all in the same thing, so kind of giving a broader picture. What does field interview mean? And I probably should know that, but I don't.
Yeah, so a field interview is when an officer stops and talks to somebody. So a lot of times, those it might be somebody riding through a neighborhood on a bicycle in the middle of the night, right? No light on. So that could go down as a traffic stop, but more commonly, that'll be a field interview. Or, somebody that is engaged in some suspicious activity. And so an officer will stop and talk to that person. So anytime that happens, that's logged as a field interview.
So we had 890 of those out in Valley West, which is like, ooh.
Yeah.
And it looks like you've had a lot of foot patrol, and I know that we have an e-bike out there, which is great to get that out there at Carlson Park and on the trails. Looks like there were 227 foot patrol, 6 indecent exposures, 54 people you were hailed by citizens.
Right.
And there seems to be underreported, I suspect, just living out there mentally disturbed are 5150. There were only 13. So I'm kind of wondering if that's accurate. Narcotics offenses, and then outside assist, and I think you mentioned that over there, but now my
Yeah.
brain has forgotten what that means.
So an outside assist is typically when we're helping another agency. So
Okay.
CHP chases somebody into the city,
Okay.
or the sheriff's office is asking us to help in McKinney.
Ambulance, Arcata Fire District, those kinds of calls.
Sometimes.
Okay. So we had 626 of those in Valley West alone, and that's not counting the Humboldt County Sheriff, which you just mentioned.
Yeah, most of those were medical aid.
Okay, yeah. Which I suspect go back to the same addresses that we listed earlier, the 3. And then overdose. Actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought it could be. Unfortunately, I witnessed one out at the new Kuna Resilient Hub the day we were doing a disaster preparedness event, and I will say that we called you. You were there, stat. thank you for that. It was really scary. And the number is relatively, I think, low, 10, I mean, for that area. And then patrol checking, 515, only 4 hypodermic needles. I'm thinking people just don't call for that.
They don't
'cause,
call, yeah.
Yeah, there was over 200 found in 1 hour in Carlson Park by Packout Green Team in 1 hour alone. And then what Meredith was talking about, traffic reckless driving, there were 32. And then traffic stops, 485. So good for you guys, doing great job for that, keeping people, getting ahead of it, if you will. And then what does unwanted subject mean?
So an unwanted subject for us is typically, like 5000 Valley West will get a lot of calls for that. And it's someone blocking a doorway, for instance, and the business owner doesn't feel comfortable, confronting them. So they'll call us and say, hey, we don't want this person blocking our doorway. So that goes down to that category. So most of them are those types of calls.
Could you remind me the name of the form? I keep forgetting that one can fill out. It's like a no trust? No, that's not what it is.
Yeah, so there's, what we generically call a 602 letter.
Okay.
And that's just the property owner giving us preemptive authorization that no one should be on their property, say, between this hour and this hour. Or in
Right.
some cases, no one should be on the property at all.
Or just to move people along if they're drinking or loose dogs, those kinds of things,
Right.
which seems to happen a lot out in the shopping center. Yeah, so the grand total, 6,761 in Valley West. And I
Sorry
will
to
stop.
interrupt, is this in the packet or where are these numbers coming from? Because I'm not finding what you're looking at.
It's not in the packet, and I'm happy
Okay.
to share it, or you can, I don't know if I can share it, you might have to go to APD to get it yourself.
Yeah, so you can get most of that information on Citizen RIMS.
Yeah.
That you can log on and it'll have all that type of information on there.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take so much time, so I will
No,
stop.
I was just curious because I was like looking in my packet. I was like, where are these coming from? Okay, and that's something the public can access online
Yeah.
as well? Great.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you. What's the name of the website where they can get
It's
that?
Citizen RIMS, so it's through the city website,
Okay.
but that's the title of it.
So thank you. And so council members, would you? Yes.
I just wanted to express that I'm grateful that that we've been able to reinstate ACOT, and I support looking for, if we have funding, more opportunities to grow that program. And just something funny, when the statistics were up, I misread the 854 assists as, it said citizen assists, and my mind went to citizen arrests. And
Yeah,
I was
no,
like,
no.
what? And I was like, what the heck? I've never seen the ambassadors
No,
arresting people.
Definitely not.
So anyways, they might find that funny.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Just thank you for the update.
Yep.
So thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And we look forward to it again, and whenever it might be. So thank you for your time. We're going to go on to item B, which is receive a Arcata Fire District 2024 year-end report from Fire Chief Chris Emmons. Thank you.
Mayor and council, thank you for allowing us to come and share the 2024 year for the Arcata Fire District. I'd like to start out just talking about the district itself, just for the public to let them know that although we're the Arcata Fire Protection District, we actually cover 62 square miles, almost all the way up to just past Clam Beach, to the north, down to Indianola in the south, and almost to Blue Lake, just this side of Blue Lake to the east, and then of course to the ocean. So we have a population for our entire district of right around 37,000 folks. So we cover quite a few people. We've got 5 communities, 3 stations that cover that, and we look at it as one big district. So before I get into the stats, I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights of the last year that we went through. We had a lot of changes where a majority of our administration turned over for us through retirements. As you know, Chief McDonald, who was there for many years, retired, and Becky Schutte, who was our business manager and board clerk, she also retired. So we were looking at having to fill some pretty significant positions within our organization. One of the first things that we did was, before Chief McDonald had left, we promoted an assistant chief, Ross McDonald. There might be a relation, but I was the one that did the hiring on that one. Anyway, we promoted him to assistant chief because we had a vacancy that, since the time I had come on, we were really struggling with our admin team only having 2 chief officers to pull the duty rotation. A big thing we've got going on is we initiated a standards of cover study and community risk assessment with the city of Arcata and Cal Poly Humboldt. So that partnership, we're getting very close to being near the end of it at this point. So looking forward to what that's going to say when it comes out. We promoted a captain, which, you know, when we don't have those positions filled, that costs overtime for the entire district to fill those positions. By promoting a captain, we then hired a fire engineer to fill that vacancy. As I mentioned before, we saw the retirement of the fire chief and business manager. We hired a new fire chief. Go figure. That would be me. So one of the things we've been doing, initially it was retired city manager Karen Deemer that asked me to start attending the directors meetings, and I really appreciated that. And city manager Perry asked me to continue with that, and we collaborate, and I work with staff quite a bit on the different things that are going on, so it gives us an opportunity to share information. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that. Let's see. So we started working closely with the county and state OES offices to bring resources into our area more frequently when we had some of these past storm events last year. The state OES has something that's called pre-positioning now, so we can request resources before the storm actually hits to move resources into our area, and we did do that. That helped us out tremendously. It was county-wide, and what we did is we broke the county into 3 sections, and that worked out very well because most of it was the southern part of the county that got hit, but we did have some incidents in our greater Arcata area and McKinleyville area, so that worked well for us. We brought back our fire prevention day, and the police department was gracious enough to attend with their command van, and that we hadn't had our fire prevention day since before COVID, and it was really nice to get a good turnout for that. We did discover that if you land 2 helicopters behind our McKinleyville fire station, everybody in town comes, and then the way you keep them there is you have the Humane Society bring puppies, and that keeps everybody on site. So little tricks I've learned already. So in October, we hired our second assistant chief because we were actually slotted for 3 chief officers, a fire chief and 2 assistant chiefs, and we were fortunate enough to hire Assistant Chief Wayne Peabody, who comes over from the Valley. He actually served as the fire chief of the Willows Fire Department and then eventually became the city manager of Willows. And then we were lucky enough to grab him when he decided he wanted to go back to fighting fire. He's a wealth of knowledge. Because of the move-ups we hired 2 additional fire engineers to fill vacancies. We had folks that left and went to Southern California. Recently during the Palisades fire, I saw one of our people on the national news there, and he was doing what we taught him to do, and that was fight fire. We hired a new business manager and board clerk. She just started recently with us. I mean, she actually started in this year, however, she started training at the tail end of the year. And then to close out the year, the big ticket item for us was we were able to collaborate with the Arcata Volunteer Firefighters Association and purchase the downtown Arcata Fire Station. And that's huge for us. That was a station that was built in 1944. The Arcata Volunteer Fire Department goes way back. It goes back into the mid-1800s. However, that station was built in 1944, and we were able to work through them. And this has been something that's been going on for decades of discussion of how the district, would incorporate into that building, and we were able to make it work. And so about middle of December, we closed on the escrow on that and purchased the station. So that was quite significant for us, historically even. Now, I'll get into the really exciting stuff, what our personnel actually do, and you'll see how busy they actually are with their statistics. I didn't think statistics could be exciting until I started going over our stats and seeing what our folks are doing. So, the 2024 year-end report, what you can see is that we had 161 fires of all types in 2024. That's actually a decrease from 2023, and what's nice about that is it tells me that our Prevention Bureau is actually doing a really good job. So they're getting the message out, telling the public how to make their homes safer, their businesses safer, so that's a really important number for us. Our rescue and EMS numbers, they're slightly up, but we're pretty much on par with what we've seen in previous years, with the exception of the first year of COVID. That was a significant blip in the trend. Good intent calls, everything's running pretty much on par with what we've seen. Good intent calls might be something along the lines of we get called to a structure fire and we show up and it's a barbecue in somebody's backyard, things like that. False alarms, it's still running about the same, so we do get a lot of false alarms still. Severe weather was up this past year for us. That also includes anything that we responded to for earthquakes. And as far as total incidents, we had 3,640, so we're up about 100 calls from the previous year, 2023. And I can tell you just on the 2-month period we've already had this year, our trend line is climbing pretty steep at this point for the 2025 year. So if you look at how we break out the different zones of our district. And as you can see, Arcata is up about 2%. They're the majority of our calls. We had about 1,700 and some change as far as calls there, and then McKinleyville being the next busiest area. Arcata was up 2% for us. If you incorporate Cal Poly Humboldt into it, the call volume up there for the year of 2024 year was up 5% for us. And then actually out in the Bayside area, which encompasses both inside and outside the city limits, we had a 30% increase on call volume out there. But what you can, from the previous year, the actual call volume was about 3% of our total call volume. And what you'll see next are our heat maps. And the red areas are where our most prevalent areas for calls are. So as you can see up in the top area here, that's the McKinleyville area. There's a couple of spots up here that you would see. They're probably closer to some of the trailer parks that are up there with some senior citizens, so that would be expected to have a little bit higher call volume. Down here, we can look into the Valley West area where a good portion of our calls are, and then down in the greater Arcata area where it's where the populace is, and that's where we run a lot of those calls. And then you can see a couple of hot spots down in the Bayside area as well, Sunnybrae and Bayside areas. So one of the things we monitor closely is what we call call stacking or overlapping incidents. So for us, what you see here, I mean, I know it may not explain a lot, but what we can get out of that is that 30% of the time we're out on one call, we get a second or a third call. So that's kind of a big deal for us when we only have 3 stations, and out of those 3 stations, as soon as one responds out, 30% of the time there's going to be a second one going, and if not a third, that would show up. We do have auto aid partners for multi-engine responses. However, those are coming from Blue Lake, Humboldt Bay Fire, Samoa Fire, Fieldbrook, and West Haven. So the drive time on a lot of those incidents, it just extends it out that much further, but they are available if we need them. And interestingly enough, I would have thought the summertime would have been the busier time, but really it's October and November carry the busiest times for us. What I tried to do here is highlight where the greater Arcata area, as far as pre-incident values and losses, and what our percent grade is based on the calculations through the National Fire Protection Association. So for the city of Arcata, You can see that we had a total of about $24 million property and contents that we responded to for incidents. As far as losses, we had 538,000, which translates into about a 98% save rate for us. So that gives us a pretty good grade for the city of Arcata. Cal Poly, I think the specific incident we had up there was an industrial clothes washer that caught on fire. So I think that's why that one was a total loss, I believe. The Bayside area, I don't know what the specific incidents are, but it shows that we have pretty much a 100% save rate out there. And then Fickle Hill, that one, I think I was the duty officer that night, and we had a total loss on it was essentially a barn that we had burned on Fickle Hill. Interestingly enough, so you can see what the call volume is. It's the Arcata, McKinleyville stations are the busiest. Mad River is a little bit slower. However, the one thing you know, if there's a fire or a rescue, Mad River is going to all of the calls. So they will be at any of these calls that are peaking over here as well. This is more of a side note with the 3 different colors there. We have 3 shifts that our shifts are broken into 48-hour schedules, and we have an A shift, B shift, and a C shift. It really doesn't hold a lot of value other than one shift can tell the other shift we're busier than you. So that's why we put that in there, because that's part of our presentation to our board as well, because they're aware of the 3 different shifts. So here's our trend line, and as you can see, this was right about the beginning of COVID, and it peaked right there and then dropped back down, and we came back down under the trend line. However, you can see it's holding steady on the rise, and I mean, I must say, when I started in 1992, we were running somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to 1,000 calls, and now we're running 3,600, so we've increased tremendously. And this relates to our full-time suppression staff. So in January of last year, we had 21 people on. We did have an overhire at that time, which was covering a lot of our vacancies for January and February. And then we lost a person who went to another agency, and we just continued to fill with overtime until we could actually, the hiring process, as Lieutenant Dockweiler said, it takes quite some time to bring someone on when you go through the process. And then once we got the positions filled and some promotions, we're starting to balance out with what our required staffing levels are now. Obviously, we think we need to have some more, and I think our standards of cover will actually reflect that. But, you know, for now, we're looking pretty good as far as what we're required to have. And as I mentioned before, our Fire Prevention Bureau is really doing a fantastic job of getting out and doing inspections. Our Fire Marshal, Ed Laidlaw, works closely with the City of Arcata building official, Joe Bishop, in the planning department on projects. And this is a breakdown of the different things that our Fire Marshal does. This is not all just with the City of Arcata. This is for our entire district. But I do know that weekly he's over here having meetings and doing inspections and working on plan reviews and things like that with the city staff. One thing we are proud to say, we have mandated inspections, which are called R1, R2, hotels, motels, schools. Those are required mandated inspections by the state. We have to do those every year, and then we're required by law to report those to our governing body, which is our district board of directors. And for the last 2 years, we have completed, we've completed 100% of our required inspections within our district, which is, you know, obviously Arcata and primarily Arcata and McKinleyville, but there's a few in the outlying areas. But that includes all re-inspections as well, daycares, apartments, hotels, schools, and daycares that we have to make sure that we get to. And that says a lot about a 2-person prevention staff, which is a fire marshal and a part-time inspector that get all of those done. So hopefully you all in the public have noticed that we've been making an effort to get more outreach to the public lately. this past summer, we decided we were going to get with the times and start putting ourselves out there in social media, updating our website more. So we've been using our team of, it's called the Volunteer Logistics Unit. So they're the only volunteers we have in the organization. They're not suppression-based, they're support-based. Some like to go to incidents, some don't. The ones that don't necessarily want to go to incidents have other things they can do to help us, which many of them are of the generation that are really good with technology, which I am not. So as you can see in July, August, we really started putting things out into social media about our emergency management or emergency disaster preparation, any messaging that we thought needed to go out. And so you can see where the peaks started between July and October. And mostly Facebook and Instagram. We've recently hired an advisor to come on that is very knowledgeable in marketing for us as well as our other groups that are with us, like our volunteer logistics unit, and getting the messaging out about offering CPR classes. That might have been a shameless plug that we do offer that. But yeah, there's things that we can do for the public that we're trying to get out there and invite people to come in and do things with us. And this is our Instagram stats. So that's what I have for our presentation. I'm welcome to answer any questions if you have any, or whatever you need.
Thank you very much. So why don't we start with Councilmember Schaefer? Do you have questions?
You kind of answered my one question, but maybe I want to get a little more technical with numbers. No, because it seems like you guys have had a lot of staffing changes and, you know, bringing people on and people getting promoted. So are you guys, you know, currently fully staffed for what you're at least required to do? And what is the number breakdown of that for captains and engineers and for your administration?
So the answer is yes and no. Yes, being that by our contract requirements internally, we do meet the staffing levels. For the state and national standards, we're below those staffing levels. As far as what we have 3 stations. Each station is staffed with a captain or company officer, which would be someone that's qualified to work in the place of a captain. So a captain and an engineer, which is the driver operator. So we have 6 suppression staff on at all times, and then 1 duty officer, which would be one of the 3 chief officers. And then we have an auto aid agreement with 9 other agencies around us. But as I mentioned, that takes driving time getting those folks over here if we have an incident.
Thank you. Let's ask Councilmember Matthews. Do you have anything you would like to ask?
No, thank you. That was very thorough. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Atkinson Salazar.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for your continued collaboration with city staff. I think that's just is amazing for the whole town. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it too. It's been great.
Good.
Okay, Councilmember White.
Of course, I always have a lot of things to say. So I'm thrilled that you're doing a lot of outreach in social media and lots of messaging in disaster preparedness. I wanted to thank you for attending the disaster preparedness event that Kuna had in November. And a big shout out for bringing that shiny red fire truck with delivering Santa to the children in Valley West. We very much appreciated that. I noted that it looked like you attend a lot of meetings. Oh boy, fun. I was curious, you had A shift, B shift, and C shift, with A being the busiest. What are those shift hours?
So their shift, it's 48 hours at a time, and they work from 8 a.m. One morning until 8 a.m. the next morning with 2 days stacked together. So they're from, they'll work a Monday, Tuesday, and then they'll have 4 days off. And then when they come back with, whatever the next series is, and it rotates. So it's interesting because when I started, it used to be 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 4 days off. And now they've grouped, the industry has grouped it into one long 48-hour period. And it'd be interesting to see a study on how that impacts firefighters now. I anecdotally, I would say it's more of a challenge now than what it used to be.
Your 98% save rate for Arcata is pretty impressive. Good job.
Thank you.
when I was looking at the heat map, what is the majority of the calls that came from Valley West? Do you know?
Without actually looking, anecdotally, I would say we hear a lot of medical aids over in that area.
Yeah.
For various things. I mean,
Particularly the two hotels?
Yeah, it's the same ones that Lieutenant Dockweiler mentioned,
Yeah.
we go to quite a bit as well.
And then the standard of cover draft is out. Do we know when it will be complete?
So staff are polishing up the technical review at this point. I'd venture to say for the city as well, they're polishing it up as well. And then we'll receive the administrative draft, hopefully within the month. I'm speculating, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping within the month because.
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah.
And then from that point, I think we will most likely have the consultant will be coming up to chat with staff and then putting together if the council and boards want to speak or whatever may happen from that.
And then there's two things. First, as you talked about meeting the requirements, but with the state we were under, what in an ideal world, what would that look like? And then the next question, what can we do as a city to make your job easier?
Oh, gosh. Well, the requirements would be at a minimum having 3 people on each of our engines. The federal standards, they suggest 4 people on an engine and 5 or 6 on a truck, depending on where the truck is. As far as what the city can do to help is when it comes time for the messaging is just being supportive of that and acknowledging that our staffing levels are important to this entire area. Making it safer. I mean, our folks work really hard with limited staffing, but they definitely do their darndest.
You're doing an excellent job. Thank you so much for what you do.
All right, thank you.
So thank you. I realize that you have a different makeup for your board right now. I think you have some changes in who the chair is and the vice chair.
Yep, we did. We had a change. So Jason Arcata is the president of our board at this point, and he used to be a City of Arcata employee. He and
Yes,
I
he
worked
did.
originally at the police department when we were young lads, and so it's nice to have him on there, someone I'm familiar with and worked well with.
So I noticed that, and I sent him. I saw the League of Cities is dealing with something around fire. Now I'd have to look at it. And I sent that to him, which he wasn't aware of, and also Cal Poly. I can't explain it to you, but Cal Poly has some kind of a system at the library where you can actually look at fires. And our forestry committee chair is going to be he'll probably contact Jason about coming and being involved in that to look at how you can deal with this region with
Right.
fires.
I think it's called the Sand Table, if I'm not mistaken, where it does modeling and everything that we
Yes.
can take a look at. It sounds like a great tool.
I think that would be a really good tool for the fire department to use. And when you have incident calls, are those the ones where you, the ambulance comes and the police come, but you're first responders?
I missed the first part of what you said.
Incident calls?
Incident calls. Well, we are, let me see which ones you're talking about on here. The good intent calls? Is that what you're?
I think what happens is something happens.
Oh, special incidents?
Yes.
I don't know. I would have to read the narrative on what that one special incident is there, but.
Oh, I didn't mean the one, but I think about this, that often somebody falls down, fire department comes, the police department, and then the ambulance to take them to
Sure.
the hospital. So that's it. Those are, you're still doing first responders.
Oh, yes, yes, we're definitely doing first response. And one thing I will say here, because as a lot of people know, I came from across the bay, and our call volume was higher. However, what I like here, it's not that I disliked anything over there, but what I liked here was that when you asked, or someone asked Lieutenant Dockweiler about the agency assists, it's so nice to show up and they're there helping, the police department's there helping us and everything. So it's really good. I mean, we had a tragic fire a few months ago, but the police department was there, right there with us. So we work very well together, and I enjoy running calls with them, you know.
Well, I thank you very much for your report, and it's nice to see you, and thank you for coming this evening.
All right, thank you.
So,
Hey, Alex, can I make a quick observation? Sure. It looks like we've had a really long already council and staff reports, and I see a lot of people that are waiting for early oral communication, getting a little antsy. I'd love to make a motion to do early oral communication before we do the last staff report and council reports.
and is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oops. We'll move to early oral communications. The city council values your comments, and the public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. The early section of the public comment is limited to 15 minutes, and speakers are allowed 2 minutes each. If you prefer to be her hand is in front of me, so I'm sorry. It's a normal drill, and I could read all the way through it, but I'm going to start with you because you're standing there, and thank you very much.
Yep, thank you for moving us up on the agenda. I'm John Friedenbaum, the general manager at Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. We're your wholesale water supplier. Hopefully you know that. If any council member would like an orientation on our regional water system, I'd ask that you coordinate that through your city manager. The real reason I'm here tonight, though, is to let you know that I'm retiring. That's not that important, but my replacement is important. And I'd like to introduce Michiko Marez, who is going to be the new general manager at Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. Her press release is on our website. If you haven't looked at that yet, you can go onto our website and get the history for Michiko. But this is Michiko.
Thank you and welcome. Would you like to say a few words?
I would, yes, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this evening. And City Manager and City staff, I look forward to collaborating with all of you. I'm already working with City staff on some items, and so thank you so much. I'm honored to be in this new role and really look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, and thank you for waiting.
Oh, of course.
So that we could hear, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah,
So thank you both very much. And our next speaker, do we have another speaker under 2 minutes? Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers for early communications? If so, would you like to please come and stand up here so we can move along? Appreciate it. I can do it.
Hi.
Thank you.
My name's Patricia Atwood. I own a couple properties here in Arcata. One of them is on 987 8th Street in Arcata. And I'm here because, first of all, I want to ask if this looks familiar to any of you. This was a report that was given back in January of 2024, 13 months or so ago, about a flooding issue in that area. Scott McBain came and did a presentation to everybody. And not for 13 months, nothing has been done. It flooded again at Christmas time. Scott showed that it was not due to high tide times. It was something beyond that. It was, it turned out to be, which he thought it was obstruction in the culvert. So it flooded again this year twice. I'm losing a tenant. I've had to replace the sheetrock, the heating system, the flooring, and it was all preventable. It was all preventable. People knew about it. Scott made it well known both to the city council and to the city manager and the engineer, and I'm really frustrated that this was completely preventable, and yeah, I'm just, I don't understand that kind of, you know, if it hadn't flooded the first time, and it was just a water backup something, I could see it, but it was flooded, it had damaged the first time, that I again replaced the floor, cleaned out the heating system, and now I'm doing it all over again, major damage, having to replace the whole heating system, and
So, excuse me, is that the breast health
yep.
building where they have their offices?
That's where they were. They're having to move now because of it. Yeah, and having health issues for it.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I am here to put in a good word for having a sister city with Gaza City. I think we can do this. I think that it's important, when we hear about the improvements that are happening around town, the reports from the police and the fire department, that, we can't take for granted that these improvements are improving the content of our character. We have to work for that. We have to actually put in the time and the effort to improve our character. And a sister city is the type of thing that can improve our character, the content of our community. And so that's part of why it's so important. What motivates this desire for a sister city is love. The possibility of a world that works for women, for children, both in Arcata as well as in Gaza. That's what we're up to. And legacy. What do we leave to our children, to our grandchildren? That's what this is about. And it's not just symbolic, it's actual, action, it's deeds, it's what's being left behind. And through a sister city, we can provide humanitarian aid, we can create cultural links, we can create trade links, we can bring Palestinian products here, we can have food, Palestinian food and music and so on. So hopefully you guys can join us at our upcoming event on the 27th of February at the Eureka Labor Temple, where we'll have a community dialogue. We'll have the Boulder Nablas head chair, Ezria Chirin, speak to us, and we can communicate as a
Thank you very
community.
much.
Thank you.
Next, please.
My name is Jeffrey Robinson. I think you probably know me mostly. I'm a local plumber. I am here also to speak to advocate for the Arcata Gaza Sister City project. And I actually wrote an email to Councilmember Schaefer about this. I've had some personal experiences lately which have made me realize that there is a serious misunderstanding occurring between Zionists and Palestinians across the world, and that people who are advocating for peace in the Middle East by stopping the flow of arms into Israel from the United States are being perceived as a physical threat on the part of the Zionists, that people are physically feeling threatened when someone says, I am against sending arms to Palestine. To me, this is kind of a canary in the coal mine moment where we need to understand one another's humanity. We need to understand that just because you're born in Gaza doesn't mean that you're just going to be a terrorist and there's nothing more to say about it. Right now, there's a lot of people worried about migration because as places become unlivable, there's nowhere to go increasingly. Europe is turning everyone away. United States turning everyone away. I kind of wonder about this deal with Trump because it seems like they're going to end up on an abandoned oil tanker in the Mediterranean, and that is not good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi there. I'm here also in support of a second city in Palestine. I got contacted by Sean when I was a candidate for Arcata City Council, and because of personal connections with Sean, we were both on the cheerleading team at HSU in 2001. I really admired his commitment to the cause, and as a coincidence, I had planned a trip to Boulder with my connections to the circus community there, but I was able to connect with Ezria in person and ask her all my questions while I was there in November. And so I would like to further my connection by joining their delegation in May, the Boulder Sister City delegation to the city of Nablus on the West Bank. So if you want more information about what inspired Sean to some of the aspects of building a sister city here in Arcata. Esria is going to be live, or not live, but Zoom live at this meeting next week on the 27th. So if you guys can go there, you can ask questions about the Boulder sister city, which has been successful for 15 years, and they have a lot of projects. They're building a health center, and they've got the ambulance, so I want to go there myself and see what it's like in Palestine. And I think that with my experience with Clowns Without Borders in Africa and Guatemala, I think I'm a good ambassador for the Arcata Sister City so that we can learn more about it. And if you want to learn more about it yourself, next week on the 27th, on Thursday, come to the question period with Esria, Boulder's sister city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Rose Gale-Zolik. I'm the Executive Director of the Breast and GYN Health Project. Tricia is our landlady. And we were flooded just a little over a year ago. One of the rooms in our facility, which is right across from the co-op, one room got totally flooded. And it took months for the rain to stop so that Tricia could fix the heating duct and replace the flooring and the sheetrock in that room. So that was really hard on our staff and our volunteers and affected our client services. And then to have it come to work on Christmas Eve and have that same experience when it was, and the first flood happened, we thought it was a once in a 20-year incident, that it was king tides and big rain. And when we got flooded on Christmas Eve, it was a low tide. So something was going on. And then the community was expecting big rain like 4 days later, and we got flooded again 4 days later. And each time the facility got flooded, the water was higher and more damage happened. So when that happened and we didn't know what the cause of it was, I felt like I had no choice but to just leave permanently. And luckily, Netra and his team and McBain and Associates was able to go down into the tunnel under PG&E, and they were able to find what the clog was and to get it out. So now in the last couple of weeks when we've had a lot of rain, we haven't flooded. We're temporarily relocating, thankfully, to the Mad River Hospital campus just for a few months until Tricia can get the facility fixed, and then we will be back. So I just want to encourage the city of Arcata to look deeply when businesses get flooded like that. All right, thank you, and thank you, Netra.
And so thank you very much.
Hello to the mayor, the city council members, the staff, and the public. I'm Rainer Shea, and I'm here to call for Arcata to adopt a sister city initiative on Palestine. Since this area's pro-Palestine movement started off the sister city campaign several months ago, this idea has gained support among many people in our community. It's clear that a sister city partnership with Gaza is a realistic goal. Sister cities are not a new idea, and the many existing sister city projects from around the world prove this. As more of the Humboldt County public gets exposed to this idea, the political environment in our area is becoming more friendly to those who want to assist the Palestinian people. Thank you for the opportunity to say this.
Thank you very much. So I'm assuming that's the end of public comment. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our staff reports. Is that correct? All right. So our next staff report is to receive an update from the city engineer, Netra Khatri, regarding the US 101 and Sunset Avenue Interchange project. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and member of the public. I'm here to just give you a quick, brief update on the project. But before we start, I just want to maybe introduce Laura Kalachek, who's the project manager, and she'll be leading this project moving forward. So she's here also.
Good evening.
one would expect that, looking at the last two presentations with the graphs and numbers and all, and engineering is presenting a project, there will be a lot of graphs, but I do not have any graphs or pie charts, just pretty pictures. So we've been working on this project for the last 2 years. We had one public meeting in November of 2023 and 2 updates at the council meetings on the project. Project is large, it's on the highway, so there are a lot of details. So what we try to focus today is just on the concerns that were brought to our attention and how we are addressing those. This is existing intersection at the Elkwood and at the Sunset. As you can see, it's one of the busiest intersection when the Cal Poly is in session. I have heard people saying it's one of the confusing intersection when they are going through it. And also I've been told that this is one of the longest crosswalk in the city, which is not a good thing, but it is true. So in November of 2023, when we did the public meeting and first update to the council, we plan to replace that confusing intersection with 2 beautiful roundabouts. At that meeting, or at that time in the project, we were putting good connectivity between Elkwood Boulevard and Sunset Avenue, adding, including a wide 10-foot crosswalk or a walkway, class 1 trail, you want to call it if you want to, which will connect Elkwood all along here, crossing the 101, and again connecting back to our existing class 1 trail, Humboldt Bay Trail North, and ultimately to Annie and Mary Trail project. Have a better crossing at the legs, better crossings at the legs of the roundabout. That was how it was proposed. But during that meeting, we heard some concerns regarding the project, mainly related to bicycle and pedestrian. I think one of the major concern was it's only a class 1 trail. There will be a lot of students, faculty walking, and there will be a conflict between bicyclists and pedestrians. So they will be using the same path, so that there might be confusion. That was one concern. The second concern was the crossing walkways are along with them. They are at the same elevation of the road, so they are lower, and people will not be able to see the pedestrians when they are crossing. And third one was, the major one was a slip lane. And this is the slip lane which was included in the project to mitigate the queuing, which I will discuss that later on. So those were the main concerns that was brought to our attention and we presented at the meeting. So how are we resolving those? So if you remember, in August of 2024, we came here and we gave you an update on the project with this map. What we are proposing is we still have a class 1 trail or 8 to 10 foot wide walkway on Elkwood Boulevard. It crosses highway, goes along Sunset Avenue, and again, it still connects with the Bay Trail and also connects with the future Annie Mary Trail. In addition to that, we are also adding a class 4 bike, we want to call it, a 2-way cycle track or a bike lane, which will be added right parallel to the walkway. So there will be no conflict on the walkway between the bicycles and pedestrians. So that's how we try to resolve that. We are still working on how we will be connecting that bikeway, walkway to our existing and the future facilities. And right now we are still in the initial design phase, so we are working through it. The second concern was the slip lane. We were not able to fully resolve the slip lane. We did reduce the turning lane, the radius of the slip lane to reduce the speed, because one of the main concern of the slip lane is the expectation or assumption is that people driving from Sunset Avenue going to the downtown, they will be going fast on the slip lane, and there's a crosswalk here, so it's not safe for the pedestrian. That is the main concern regarding the slip lane. So how are we addressing that? So before we tell how we're going to address that, maybe let me show you what the real issue is. So during the last meeting, I mentioned that we will have our engineers look at really, do we need that slip lane for the project or not? So we did look into that. So what happens if there's a growth in population and vehicles increase in 20 years? The assumption here is every year there will be 2% growth, which I believe is very conservative for the trips that are generated. But we have to be mindful that it is Highway 101, and we have a Cal Poly, and potentially there will be an increase in number of students in future. So we have to make an assumption of maybe 2%, which I believe it's still conservative, but it's a good number to at least go by. So if we use that assumption of 2% annual growth rate, in 2040, you will see with that growth rate, vehicles queuing on this. If we don't put a slip lane, they will be queuing all around about on J Street, Sunset, and on the Foster Avenue. That's for 2040. Again, in 2050, same case, they'll be queuing on the ramp, and also queuing goes all the way to along the Foster Avenue to Eastern Avenue, which is pretty long queue, and we don't want that, especially near the roundabout. But if we add the slip lane, the queuing is significantly reduced. It does not go even to the roundabout. And definitely, we have not analyzed for 2050, but if the growth rate is in the same way, definitely it will increase and go towards here, but not all the way to Eastern Avenue. So how are we resolving that? Definitely, based on the current trips that we have seen, a slip lane is not warranted. So what we are proposing is, as a part of the project, continue with the design the way it's planned for, the way we have been showing for our last 1 year, move along with that, with those modifications that I just mentioned, and do the slip lane on the southbound here for coming in, because there's no crosswalk here at this point. However, eliminate the slip lane from Sunset to Edge Street here. What we are saying is just eliminating for now, convert that area to a landscape, which will give a more buffer between the travel lane and the walkway and the bicycle lane. But in future, if for some reason there's an unexpected growth in 5 or 10 years, we will have space where you can just remove the landscape. Still, we'll keep the buffer because there is a wider buffer between the walkway and the travel lane. So we'll keep that, but the portion of that landscape could be converted to a slip lane, and then roundabout will be efficiently functioning as designed. I'll just pause here and see if you have any questions before I go on my last slide, which is just on project schedule. Seeing none, moving forward. And you have seen this in August when I came here. I showed this one. So we are done with our preliminary phase. Environmental phase is complete. Currently, we're in the design phase. We were seeking funding for design. We got it. We were seeking funding for construction. We got it. At that time, I said this is one of the best example of partnership project, and it will still be. The reason for that is 4 different agencies are working together, not only working together, but funding. For example, from feds, we are getting funding for $15 million for construction. Cal Poly is contributing $2.5 million towards the construction. Caltrans is contributing $1.25 million for construction, and city will be contributing some funds for construction. So this is one of the best partnership projects once it's complete. So we are very excited about this project. So our next steps are, we are currently working on the final design, not final, design phase. Our 60% design will be coming to our hands in coming months, or maybe in late summer. And we plan to host one more public meeting right after we get our 60% design. And then we'll come back again for one more update where we are after 60% design at the council and at the TSC. And if all goes as planned, we hope to start construction 2026. So with that, I'll pause. Are you going to add anything?
Okay, so thank you. Questions from the council members? Would you like to start?
I would love to. I just have 2 compliments. I guess maybe 1 question. But I do love that you were able to find the space for the 2-way bike traffic, and we talked a lot about that, and it just seemed like with this big of a project, it would be a missed opportunity not to do that if we were able to, but I know there were space constraints in there. And so I was wondering how, what we had to sacrifice to make that happen?
Not sacrifice. We did have like some right of way, which was maybe, we assumed it was part of Arcata High School, but we realized that we do have some right of way and we are encroaching in that field. We'll be not encroaching in the field, but on the slope by building some retaining walls.
Thank you. And then I just really appreciate the preparation of planning for the slip lane. I think that was a great compromise to just be thinking ahead and providing space for when we might need it, but holding off. And I think that's a great model in general for moving forward on projects like these. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer. Okay, we'll go over to Councilmember. Okay, what about Councilmember White?
Just concur with Stacy Atkins Salazar in that ingenuity of building in something for the future was a great idea.
I have a question though. When you have the crosswalks, they're at grade. When you were showing the crosswalks, landscaping, anyway, are all the crosswalks at grade, so they have to walk across the traffic?
It will be gray, but they'll be striped white. Or in fact, it's close to the schools, it'll be yellow. So they will be striped yellow.
Okay.
So when you say gray, it's because it's concrete, that's why it's gray. But it'll be striped.
No, I meant grade, not gray, but at grade, you know.
Oh, sorry, at grade. I'm so sorry.
At grade,
yes.
I'm sorry about
No,
that.
crosswalk will be raised. They will be raised crosswalk. So all this. So yes, that was one of the modification. Initially, they were at grade, but during our design process, we made them to raised crosswalks. So they will be raised crosswalks.
Okay, thank you. What will happen with the overcrossing bridge we have now that's in the end of Northtown? The one that goes over to Cal Poly, that goes underneath the roadway, you know, the one that you walk across? Will that still stay there, or will that go away?
I'm not following you.
Okay,
The pedestrian bridge on 17th Street?
The footbridge, if it's by the motel?
Yeah, that will remain there. We were not planning to remove that bridge anytime soon.
No, I just wondered with all of this if that might go away. Okay.
No, that's not the plan.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for introducing your staff person for this evening. Appreciate it very much. So
well, I just wanted to say something earlier. I got a kudo from one of the members here, but it's not from me. It was Environmental Services Department, Emily Sincon's team, who cleaned that culvert with help from Dave Hooven. So just wanted to maybe say that.
Yes, I think that was quite something. It's unfortunate that
yes, we can talk about that later, but just want to make sure, like, here in this environment, I think it was mainly Environmental Services Department and Dave Hooven who cleaned the culvert, and there's no more flooding, so.
Right, so thank you very much for that. So I wanted to ask the council, did you want to take a 5-minute break and come back, or do you want to Okay, that would be fine. So let's move on to council communications, and let's start down at Councilmember Schaefer.
Sure, thank you. Just a couple updates. Our CEA doesn't happen until the end of the month, so I'm waiting for that. But just a couple Equity Arcata updates. Mo and Equity Arcata will be up at the Social Justice Summit on campus on March 3rd at 11 a.m. That room hasn't been decided yet, but I'm sure they'll probably post that on social media, and there'll be some information out about that. So they'll be doing some activities and talking about Equity Arcata and doing some different activities on belonging and community. So that's really exciting. And then on March 9th, it's going to be the Home Away from Home potluck. And this particular one is going to also be co-sponsored by Black Humboldt, which is exciting to be bringing in those local organizations into our planning for Home Away from Home. So that's going to start at 5 p.m. And so if you want to come out and bring a dish or not and just spend some time with our student community and chat with folks and be there, or even lend a helping hand, usually there's lots of room for volunteers to help with just cleaning up and making sure food is stocked and all of that. So those are my two updates. And then just kind of a general question or maybe a request for agenda item, because we don't really have a section for that. But I would love to revisit our Airbnb ordinance and maybe look at some of the data and facts and figures for that, just because I so often, as people my age, love to scour Zillow and see and dream about what houses in Arcata I can maybe someday buy. And one that I really particularly liked, which was a lovely 3-bedroom, family home on Blakesley, down in a neighborhood that's full of families, is now like an Airbnb, and it put a really bad taste in my mouth. And I'm like, how is that still happening, with our cap that we have in place? And so I'd really like to take a look at how we're still getting even more new single-family homes into that stock, that are just being bought up and turned into Airbnbs, which is definitely what our ordinance is about preventing. And so if we could maybe have an update on just some of those numbers and what's going on with that, and maybe if we need to tamp down on that, look at that opportunity. So thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, so we could put that on the future agenda to discuss that. Thank you. So, Councilmember White. Did I skip you?
No, I thought maybe you're just jumping around.
Okay, I am.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but I'll go.
Okay, well, you can go.
Go ahead. We're very linear up here, I guess.
I mean, we don't always have to go in order.
We
so.
don't. So I was able to attend the Homeless Services meeting today, and I used to serve on that as a liaison to that group for my first couple of years on council, and I've been away from it, and I was really excited to be back in that space. It's a really dynamic group of people that really care about our most vulnerable people in our population. And it was kind of just a bummer of a meeting to be part of, and it's not for any of us here locally for not trying, but just the frustrations with funding and already seeing some changes. And, the people that serve that particular population do a lot with a little. And as I think we all know, it's still not enough. So to sit there, for an hour and a half and talk about all that could quite possibly be going away and how to try to serve the growing number of people. And what was shared with us is many folks are receiving services for the very first time. So I know it's, I think it's easy, or maybe we like to think it's just the same group of people, but it's not. There are new people all the time, and the senior population is currently at the greatest risk. And so just, I think we're all going to have really tough choices to make in the near future. And I think for me, I just want to be really mindful and careful about the projects that we do take on, and to use our funding as wisely as we can, because we probably will have a lot of community members that need us more than ever. So I'm grateful for the folks doing that work, and maybe look forward to better report outs at future meetings. I do have HCOG, Humboldt County Associations of Government, tomorrow evening, and we will be meeting in closed session to discuss the possibility of the new pick for executive director. So hopefully at the next council meeting we have, I will be able to make that announcement. But we had great candidates. It was exciting to have so many good candidates. And I will be zooming in to the next meeting because I will be at the CalCog, which is the California Association of Governments meeting, and I will hopefully be learning some interesting things about funding, because that is a continued concern of mine, and I'll hopefully have some information to report back to everyone. Probably not at that meeting. It's the first night, I think, but when I get home. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go now to Councilmember White.
Thank you for that update, Stacy. So I won't have my regular Redwood Region Economic Development Committee meeting until next Monday, so I'll report at our next council meeting. I did get to meet today with the REDEC Loan Committee, and was excited that we got to approve 2 local business loans. I got to attend the annual Business Leadership Award dinner on Saturday evening, and it was with a theme to dress as your favorite decade. So that was a lot of fun. Saw some great outfits. And it was wonderful just to see all the wonderful businesses being recognized. Bless you. Finally, this Friday at 6 p.m., Kuna will be having its second What's Cooking Culinary Food Literacy program with Molly Joe of Riptide Cafe doing a corn chowder salad demo, along with some ideas on how to do weekly food prepping for those busy families that
need to do food prepping. So, and as always, these events are free, so all are welcome. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews?
I have nothing to report out, thanks.
You don't have anything? Okay, well, the only thing I have is that within a month, the Humboldt Transit Authority will receive its first hydrogen bus. And so hopefully maybe we can think one day that we could have garbage trucks that could be operating with hydrogen and whatever might be, because we'll have a hydrogen fueling station at Humboldt Transit Authority. And that'll be coming in the future. In the interim, we now have a temporary one. So that's all I have. And so I want to go to additional staff reports.
I don't have anything to report. I can wait till next meeting.
Well, then we're going to take our break. Thank you. on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. A, approval to waive the reading of the text and consent to read by title only for an ordinance on this agenda. Approve the minutes of the special City Council meeting of February 5th, 2025. Approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of February 5th, 2025. Bi-weekly reports on disbursements. E is approve project and award a contract to $156,980 for Highland Street Improvement Project to RAO Construction Company, Inc. Authorize city engineer to increase contract up to $15,698 or 10%, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. F, approve plans and award contract of $481,087 and $870 to RAO Construction Company, Inc. for Isaacson STI Improvement Project Phase 2. Authorize city engineer to increase contract up to $731,870 and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. G, approve an annual proclamation designating February as Black History Month and an annual proclamation in recognition of human trafficking awareness in the city of Arcata, and add both proclamations to the city approved list. H, adopt resolution number 245-32, accepting a public utility easements on a portion of assessor's parcel number 502-031-057, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. I, approve the purchase of one trailer-mounted master mix asphalt recycler in the amount of $79,902.45 and award purchase contract to Steep Manufacturing Company and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Would anyone on the council like to remove an item? Anyone in staff would like to remove an item? Is anyone in the public like to just have an item removed or discuss an item on the consent calendar? Which item is it, please?
Mayor Stillman, we routinely with the procedures manual don't have the members of the public remove items.
Would you like to make a public comment? I would. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Joanne McGarry, and I've been going to these meetings long enough, and I know that things changed when it came to the consent calendar process. It used to be that either you, the council members, or members of the public could ask to have something removed, and that's not available anymore. So I'm just wanting to say about F, it's a huge amount of money. I'm always concerned on a consent calendar when such a huge amount of money, especially when it's increased so much, what it looks like, can we have a limit as to what amount, what can go on a consent calendar in the future, limit to the dollar amount, like let's just say $50,000, and anything that's being asked more than $50,000 not be on the consent calendar. And then H, public utility easement. I'm just curious, you know, these parcel numbers and everything, they're so vague. And I guess I didn't have a chance to look at the paperwork to know specifically what this is about, if it was existing, but a little bit of an explanation, because when we're giving easements on public utilities, whether it's a cell tower or something like that, neighbors in the community really like to know what's happening. And this is also bureaucratic.
Thank you very much.
Could I just say something? On pages 36 through 43, there's a pretty clear, concise explanation if you didn't get a chance to look at that.
So is there anyone else that would like to speak on the consent calendar?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt before the vote? Yes. I did see one hand on Zoom.
Oh, yes, please bring them forward.
Okay. Go ahead, call on user 1. call in user 1, you may need to unmute yourself.
My apologies. My hand was raised from the previous public comment section and I was never recognized, but since I'm on, I might as well go ahead and back up what Suzanne said regarding the explanation of this item H. Kimberly White said that it was on page 33 of a document that I don't have access by clicking any link here at home while I'm looking at the agenda. And thank you for all your work. I'll public comment what I was intending at the end of the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else on Zoom? Okay.
No.
So thank you. So we have a motion made by Councilmember Matthews, and I think it was seconded by Councilmember Schaefer. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, public scoping hearing on potential projects the city may submit for funding.
Can't hear you. Your mic's off, Alex.
I know, I was just using what I had, and so it doesn't have 11. But we'll go to item number 11, old business, adopt resolution number 245-33, establishing and approving the interfund loan policy. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, good evening. This item was actually introduced at the February 5th meeting when we talked about the water fund, and what we're at with the possibility of potentially lending money from our wastewater fund to our water fund. So as a preemptive step, we thought that it would be appropriate and good practice to actually ask you to review and potentially approve a policy that would outline the terms of that. Just really quickly, an interfund loan definition is just amounts provided between funds and blended component units, which are very similar of the primary government with the requirement for repayment. And probably the key piece there is the requirement for repayment. I put the GASB code, and GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's, just to kind of notice that this is something that they have addressed and it is part of good governmental accounting. So interfund loans are something that we use in finance, in governmental accounting finance quite a bit, and it's necessary and recognized. For the most part, these are short-term loans, and they're done to provide working cash for, in most cases, it's grant projects or programs where we get awarded the money, but we don't receive it until after we've submitted a reimbursement request. And so many times what will happen is that we'll run into the negative and we have to borrow funds from another fund, many times the general fund, to support these. A good example of this would be our CDBG grants, our home grants, and then many of our transportation and transit grants. We have to wait to get the money until afterwards. These are distinguished from interfund transfers, which typically don't require repayment, and are used to kind of contribute to or specifically offset a cost of another project. The key area here, and the one that really comes into play, and the reason that we're putting a policy before you now, is the idea of if we do longer term interfund loans, there's more best practices, and this is one of those areas that if you don't comply with sort of the best practices in the accounting standards and state law, we can get in a little trouble. And so we want to put forward a policy that will protect me and also you, and be more public and transparent as to how we're dealing with our finances. So anything that exceeds 1 year is considered a longer-term loan. These can't be used to solve ongoing structural budget deficits. They require repayment from an identified source and funding stream, so you have to be able to repay the loan when you make it. You are required to put controls in place to ensure repayment, and then it should be approved by City Council with specific written terms, maturity dates, interest charges, and payment due dates, just like if you borrowed money from a bank or another source. So the proposed city policy is recognizing that this can be a benefit to the city. It allows us flexibility, and in many cases, it may allow us to loan ourselves money at a much reduced cost. It also allows you to do it on an as-need basis. So instead of going out and borrowing an $8 million loan, getting the money up front, this allows you to take it as you need it from the other funds with pretty quick turnover. We are requiring in our policy that we have a stated purpose, so it's got a purpose, and that the lending fund is protected, and that we're protecting the cash and its ability to do its function, and it doesn't hinder the projects or programs for which that fund was established. It won't exceed 10 years, and as part of our internal controls, we're suggesting that they also be budgeted and included in the budget process annually, so they're recognized, they're publicly known, and the funds are secured. Just a few things with adoption of this policy tonight, if you take that stand. I want to make it very clear that this does not approve the loan that we talked about on February 5th. It makes it possible, but it also makes it possible with my having to come back to City Council and ask you to approve it with those very specific policy items in place. And it also, probably more importantly for all of us, is it helps us avoid any audit findings or other allegations of misappropriation of funds. One of the footnotes in the February 5th staff report was to a report, and you can read it at the bottom there, and it kind of says everything. City of Lincoln financial management insufficient accountability and lacks oversight threatens the city's stability. And this was really all about interfund loans that they had done that didn't meet the requirements of the policy that you're putting in place and hadn't been done in a real public manner. And with that, I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, please?
I had a question. I'm really glad that we're doing this first. And I'm trying to understand. So do we charge ourselves interest, or is it because we're losing interest? Do we, if we're taking it from somewhere else?
For the long-term loans, we are suggesting that we charge ourselves interest so that the fund lending the proceeds receives what it would have if that fund had not borrowed it. And it recognizes that it's a formal process. I can tell you that some of the policies that I looked at from other cities had a reduced rate, particularly when they were between funds, and in the one case, between utility funds, because you don't want to necessarily increase a cost to your utility customers if you can help it. So.
And we know where to find ourselves too,
Yes.
this way if we don't pay it back.
So any other questions? Councilmember Matthews?
Actually, I was going to ask about interest too, so that was a great question. Thanks. No, I really appreciate the thoroughness of this. It's definitely protecting ourselves, and I know that this is not for any specific thing right now, so I'm looking forward to the conversation coming back at a later date. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmembers Atkinson Salazar.
Thank you. No questions. This is a much easier decision than our previous one, so I'm happy to vote on this one.
And
When Tabitha explains things, they're easy to understand, so thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And I don't think we have to take any action. We just have to, or do you want to take action?
Yeah, we would ask that you actually adopt the resolution 245-35 that would establish the interfund loan policy.
Would someone please move to adopt the resolution?
But do we need to do?
We need to take public comment.
We could adopt, we could take the action and move and second it, and then we can take public comment. Or we can take public comment and then we can move. Which do you prefer? Public comment, please.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and because I come to these meetings and hear Tabitha Miller, our finance manager for the city of Arcata, explain things so transparently, clearly, in layperson's language, as much as one can possibly understand, sometimes a complicated financial thing, I just want to say that you are an exemplar in transparency and truth and trust for the city, and I totally appreciate how you present things, why you present things, and why our city council is lucky to have you in your position to make these kinds of decisions.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's very much appreciated. Is there anyone else that would like to make comment? If not, maybe we have a motion.
Sure, I'd like to adopt resolution number 245-33, establishing and approving an interfund loan program policy.
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion against. Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is new business, public scoping, hearing on potential projects the city may submit for funding under the State Community Development Block Grant 2025, Notice of Funding Availability, NOFA. So David, Community Development Director, David Loya, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council. Tonight we're taking on a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Program scoping. This is an opportunity for the public to provide input on potential projects the council may direct applying for. At this time, we do not have the Notice of Funding Availability or NOFA available, so we don't know what's going to be available this year, but it is a requirement that we hold a hearing in order to be eligible. You may be feeling a little bit like Groundhog Day because we did this recently for a NOFA that was released very late in the year. Typically they come out in the spring, and we were trying to anticipate being able to apply for that grant. We weren't eligible at that time, but we think we will be eligible this time. The CDBG program is telling us that the NOFA will be released in the summer. So we've provided you a list of projects here in attachment A, and you should take public comment, and you can add to this list if you wish. At this point, we don't know what's going to be available for funding, but this is really just crowdsourcing ideas for projects. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and otherwise I recommend you open the public hearing for public comment.
Thank you. Why don't we open the public hearing?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
So on that first one under acquisition of real property, and it talks about the 1622 Old Arcata Road property, who would be acquiring that? Because doesn't Danco already own that property? And would that be then us working with them to own part of that, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so what that first one is the basically when Danco does these projects, they typically have an LLC that holds the project. And so ultimately the project gets sold to that LLC, the property gets sold to that LLC, and then the Danco Communities builds the project essentially for that LLC. For this particular project, there's an approximate $600,000 gap in financing that they're hoping to close. And CDBG would be an eligible use of or source for funds for that. And so what we'd be doing would be, and we've done this on several other projects with them, where we loan the money to them to essentially purchase the project. It's a way of building the finances for the project and making sure that it's fully funded. And so then we would hold that note that they would then repay based on residual receipts. So they'd pay us back over time. So we'd be acting kind of like a bank in that situation. Mm-hmm.
I just have a question. When you say the jurisdictions are eligible to apply for 3 applications, 2 of them look exactly the same, and so maybe I'm misreading it, but one is included the OTC project and one OTC program, and then the next 2 say the exact same thing. Is that a typo, or?
Can you point me to where in the staff report you're seeing it?
Absolutely. Page 55 of 6262. It would be paragraph 3, under jurisdictions, right below the 2 bullet points of public service planning, activities, and housing program economic development.
Yeah, so this is just indicating what was available in the last NOFA. And
Yeah, I asked last time too, and you explained it, but I didn't understand.
Yeah, no,
Looks
that's
the same.
fine. So it is a little confusing because you are allowed to apply for different activities. And so in the last NOFA, they allowed you to have either one over-the-counter project, one over-the-counter program, and one competitive application, or you were allowed one over-the-counter project and 2 competitive applications, or one over-the-counter program and 2 competitive applications. So the project and the program are different.
Got it. Thank you.
And yeah, so that's really the main difference there. And so you could take those and split them up in any way you can imagine.
Got it.
It's probably a little bit too much detail, to be honest with you, for where we're at right now, and in particular because we don't know what they're actually going to authorize us to apply for. This information may not be the same in the upcoming NOFA.
And so just leads me to my next question. We aren't actually making decisions on the potential activities. You're just saying that these are potential activities. We're just holding this as a public hearing so that when that NOFA does come forward, we've done our public hearing.
Absolutely. And the way this list works is that we put any idea on this list. If it comes from the public, we'll put it on the list, or if the council directs us to, we'll put one on the list. Many of the ideas that go on this list, which we maintain over time, if it didn't get funded in the last year, we'll keep it for the next year and see if it gets funded then. Sometimes ideas get on this list that aren't even eligible for CDBG funding, but the idea is that we're taking in the public comment. When we see the NOFA, we'll come back and make a recommendation to you as to what we think is going to be most competitive based on our experience with the program and knowledge of that NOFA. And so this is really just a dream list. Bring us your dreams.
Other questions? Public comment?
Thanks. My name's Joanne McGarry, and I'm still trying to understand a lot of this, but since you said it's a dream list, I'm going to toss out here. Yeah, as you all know, I'm a climate activist and very concerned about the future in Arcata and our community in terms of how we get around the community, and I'm really a big proponent, as I'm modeling as I can, being a pedestrian and a public transit rider and a trike rider when I can. So as a pedestrian walking around, and as an older person who needs to stop every once in a while, I'm just curious if part of the dream could be increasing public benches and public bathrooms around the city so that people like me who walk can have places to stop and rest and restroom. And then maybe an additional third thing, because I like to do things in threes, is a reevaluation of our, for lack of a better term, trash receptacles. A lot of comment has been made that they're limited in certain parts of our city, and maybe doing some sort of mapping as to where it might be beneficial to have fewer of them or have more of them. So those 3 things: benches, bathrooms, and trash cans, as maybe something that we can create a design for.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? All right, not being any council, what kind of ideas do you want to throw out for the dream? None or some?
No, I thought it was a lovely list, and it's a lovely dream list until we get the reality meeting where you tell us we can maybe pick one.
Okay. So with that,
I just wanted to say I did do some mapping out on the plaza and in the surrounding and counted the number of benches, the number of recycling, garbage, and all of those. So I don't have them in front of me, but I'm happy to share that with you.
Okay, thank you. So, shall we, you're not expecting any action on this item?
No, I will add public right-of-way improvements for accessibility, and then I put benches, bathrooms, and bins.
All Bs, that's very good. 3 Bs. So thank you very much for the presentation. And with that, I'm going to move on to B, which is review and approve revisions to the city officials protocol manual and consider adoption of resolution 245-34 establishing format and procedures for the city council meeting. And we'll have city manager Merritt speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor Stillman. So this was placed on the agenda at the request of some council members to make some specific changes to the procedures manual. Per Chapter 9 of the City Council Protocol Manual, the City Council will review and revise the City Council Protocol Manual as needed. There's 3 changes that are being proposed. I'll try to be brief. The first one is to restructure the order of agenda to move the council reports to the end of meeting where they had been traditionally. The second one is to eliminate the category for items removed from the consent calendar. The purpose of that one, it's causing some troubles with our new eScribe software by having it and pulling items and renumbering. So what we would do in this instance is, if this change is approved, is to just handle the consent calendar items that are pulled as a part of the consent calendar rather than having a separate item. So it's really just kind of an administrative, no real change to how we do things. And then the last one is reducing the amount of time that's allowed for public comment from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. And I'll just remind the council that right now, the city's basic standard is to provide 3 minutes, except at the early oral communication, which that's 2 minutes. So the mayor also has the ability to modify the amount of time that members of the public are allocated for individual comments, provided that all members of the public are allowed the same amount of time. So I would just remind the council that the mayor already has the discretion to be able to change that amount of time if needed. And so those are the 3 very straightforward requests. The changes are tracked in a copy of the protocol manual, which was attached to the staff report. Any changes approved by the council would be incorporated into the updated protocol manual. And then additionally, adopt a resolution would reflect any changes that are desired by the council to be brought into that. And it's not limited to these 3 changes. The council, now that we have this item open, if the council had other changes they wanted to make, they could do so at this time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we're seeking direction from council and of which changes you would like to make, and then to adopt the resolution to reflect those changes.
Which council member would like to start first?
Can I just open this up to the rest of the council, because we literally just changed this when Meredith was mayor to put the council and staff reports at the beginning of the meeting instead of the end, which was kind of based on, I think, the idea that there was quite a few meetings where directors were staying until 10 p.m. to give, a 2-minute update that could have happened way earlier in the meeting. And the kind of belief that a lot of the public doesn't stay till the end, so they don't get to hear those reports from staff, and they don't get to hear those reports from council, and don't get to hear, us talk about all the great things and how much hours of work that we're putting in and all the meetings that we go to. So that could have been a trial run, and if other people on the council aren't really into that change, I just don't know where this is coming from, because we just changed it. And I think it's a positive change. I like having it at the beginning. My one thing that maybe we saw today that we didn't quite get to oral communication as soon as people wanted. And so if that's the issue, I would be maybe open to, we could push up early oral communications before those staff reports. But I think that we had a discussion and made a pretty concerted decision probably about a year ago to put it at the beginning. So I'm just curious how my other council members feel about that.
So I don't know about the rest of you, but I know I specifically brought that up to the city manager at the time. But when I brought it up, I said staff reports. I did not mean for it to be all of the things. And so I'm not I don't like care deeply either way, but I'll tell you my logic for wanting to revisit it is, yes, the staff reports, I felt like staff was sticking around for longer than they needed to. And so I like those at the beginning. For me, the only reason that I wanted to keep council reports at the end is sometimes it's nice, well, I mean, it's nice to talk at the beginning and have everybody here, and sometimes it is kind of anticlimactic at the end when we all just want to go home. But saving it until the end, then that way, sometimes we end up with a statement that generates from what we heard throughout that meeting. And so we've kind of used that time to reflect on maybe a variety of public comment that came up during the meeting. And like we've used it as a chance to make like a personal statement in response to things. And so because we speak first, we don't get to hear the public comment. And so we don't really get a chance to make that general like statement about it. But I don't feel passionately about it. So that's just the history on my part.
And can I just add, because I think I brought this up when we talked about it before, but like on my JPA board, we have an item at the end that's like future agenda items, at least. That's like, again, if things come up that we want to put on a future meeting or discuss. But I get kind of the more personal statement part doesn't necessarily fall under that category. But
Councilmember Matthews.
Yeah, I'm not particularly married one way to the other as far as when the council report outs go. And as far as staff reports, I like having them at the beginning. I just think that we really need to be cognizant when we are scheduling staff reports, not to stack them up so there's like 3 long staff reports. And, you know, it's again at the mayor's discretion or somebody in the council, if they see people getting antsy in the audience, to say, you know, let's maybe take some public comment first. So it really doesn't matter. I don't, one way or the other, when we do council reports, I usually am like the quickest, so I don't care. As far as though limiting communication from 3 minutes to 2, I mean, you know, I have run meetings when we have the whole audience full of people wanting to talk, and I have been a mayor when there's only 3 people, and I think that, you know, definitely being cognizant of everybody wanting to get a chance to talk and how many people are there, that is something that's really up to the mayor's discretion. I think that if there's 3 people at the end that are waiting around to make a public comment, then they should be able to talk for their 3 minutes.
yeah, and I agree with Meredith on that. I forgot to bring that up at the beginning. I mean, I think that's the power of being the mayor. You get to have it up to your discretion, and there's been many times, like Meredith said, where, yeah, we limit it to 1 minute, we limit it to 2 minutes, but when we're out here and we have our few friends here, you know, I don't see any, you know, risk at that. And so I think and not to like make it a big, scary moral imperative, but like at a time where people's rights are being stripped away and people's ability to speak publicly about things are being stripped away, let's give people their 3 minutes. up to 3 minutes, right? And that creates flexibility for the mayor and for the council. And for the council, you know, if Alex doesn't want to change it and 2 of us say, hey, I think we should limit public comment, can we make a motion for that? We can do that too, right? If we have a majority of council members that want to vote on that too.
Yes, you can.
So I guess my question is, we can address each one of these at a time, is that correct? And then what I would like to say is yes to number 2, and I'm not. That would be because of the software. So staff requesting the items to be removed from consent calendar. I concur. I think what Sarah said was that, I mean, we just did this less than a year ago, so I'm wondering why we would change this, and then does this mean we'll change it after the term of the mayor?
It's
and
me.
We'll,
It's
change
me.
the resolution?
You can blame me. I wanted to see if we couldn't get our council communications back at the end of the meeting instead of having staff and council. I think staff needs to be at the beginning like it is, and I would appreciate keeping that exactly where it is, but
so,
removing the council to the back.
And if I could just clarify, the proposal is to separate the 2 and leave staff reports at the beginning and then move council reports to towards the end of the meeting where Mayor Stillman recommended.
So I
that wasn't
understand that,
clear,
and
so
as I was
thank you.
saying, I do not concur in those changes with the exception of number 2. And I do agree with Sarah that I really would like to keep the 3-minute at the end option. Of course, it's always at the discretion of the mayor, and so, you know, that can happen without actually changing this to 2 minutes for each. I'm not extremely married to that one as much as I am the last one for the 3 minutes, but, I mean, if it pleases the rest of the council, then I
Well, I
won't
just want
block
to see
it.
where we stand, so,
If we uncouple them, I didn't understand that. That wasn't clear to me. So if we can uncouple those items, I am open to reserving my comments for the end.
And that's how it's proposed, to have staff reports where they currently are and move council reports towards the end.
Yeah, that was the way that I meant for it to happen when we talked about it. I just originally didn't use the right language, I guess.
And I guess for that reason, I do like the idea that we do have an opportunity to hear public comment, and then we have statements and responses that we wouldn't get to do otherwise. So I guess, yeah, I concur then.
okay, so it looks like we have consensus at this, we can vote on this, but consensus that we will keep staff reports where they are. We'll move the council reports back where they used to be at the end, and the consent calendar, you want to repeat, the consent calendar with our new software requires it to be all together. Is that my understanding?
We'd eliminate the item for items removed from the consent calendar, and we would just handle the consent items as part of the, that are pulled as part of the consent item.
Okay, thank you. And I see there's consensus to keep it at 3 minutes.
But I do think that what Merritt mentioned, adding, future agenda items towards the end, that's great. Let's do that too.
That's currently in the protocol manual as an item.
And it's listed here on our dates, dates for future meetings, but we
No,
could have.
future
items for
agenda items.
Future agenda items.
But I guess if we're moving council reports till the end, that
we can
is part and parcel with that, so we'll make sure it gets
We can ask
there.
for future agenda items then. Okay, so would you like a motion? We should have a motion.
Public comment.
Does anyone want to comment on our public comments? Thoughts, what we want to do with the manual?
Arcata, I appreciate your discussion and I agree with it. 3 minutes is a lot of time if you talk fast. If you talk slow, it's not. And so I appreciate keeping the 3 minutes, and splitting the council and staff reports makes a lot of sense. And thanks. I think you guys are doing well.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi. My name's Joanne McGarry, and as I've said in the past, this position in this room is as important as your position, and so 3 minutes, the city of Eureka, I attended their city council meeting last night. They keep everything at 3 minutes, even in the beginning. They have a half hour dedicated to public comment, 3 minutes each at the start of the meeting, and then if there's people who still need to speak at the end of the meeting, we don't have to imitate exactly what Eureka does, but I just want to share that with you, that they value the public comment and allow people 3 minutes. And I do appreciate the opportunity for staff reports and for those of us sitting and watching to get those staff reports early on, because it really helps us understand things better, so that when we make our public comments, there may be we're more educated about how this whole thing works. So 3 minutes for everything. If you want to keep it at 2 minutes at the beginning, I guess that's okay. But splitting up the council and the staff is fine as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I'm glad we're talking out loud about this. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No, we do not. We do not.
Okay, thank you. So if I understand this correctly, we'll keep staff reports at the beginning. We'll deal with the consent calendar as stated, and we'll keep it at 3 minutes at the end for public comment, and we will move council reports to the end.
And I would just suggest not changing the time limits we have currently. So that would be keeping early oral communications at 2 minutes and the rest of the comments at 3 minutes.
And that we will add an item instead of dates of future meetings. We'll just handle that, as you mentioned, putting.
And that's
If we have the council reports at the end, then we
fine
can
with that?
yeah.
Okay.
So I would suggest leaving that as is, and it's currently an item after, it would come after council reports for dates of future meetings and future agenda items. So it would come after council reports, and if council members had something they wanted to discuss, then we could come back and add that as the next item. So we would leave that where it is currently.
Okay.
Unless the council's proposing to change that.
So, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to make a motion to approve the changes as discussed, if that works for our clerk.
Is there a second?
Which I could go through them again if you want me to, but.
I guess I'm confused. I thought we were going to leave the 3 minutes.
Yeah,
She
that's
means
what
Sarah
was,
means as we're
that was
just-
said, but that still includes we're leaving it the way it currently is,
Oh,
which
got
is
it.
2
Not as
minutes
what-
at the beginning for early oral, or you can take your 3 minutes at the end and 3 minutes for all agenda items, up to 3 minutes at the discretion of the mayor.
And moving council reports.
And
to-
moving council reports to the end and keeping staff reports at the beginning and approving the consent calendar item to help with.
I second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Okay, let's move forward. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to our next item, which is the introduction of 1575, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending the land use code to update affordable housing zoning. Waive reading of the text and consent to read by title only. And Community Development lawyer, please.
Yeah, good evening, council, again. This item on inclusionary zoning and density bonus dates back to discussions on the general plan process. We've had several study sessions, planning commission meetings, and council meetings on this topic. And it is before you tonight as a noticed public hearing. The contents are largely what were directed by the City Council to the Planning Commission and staff at the last study session. And the Planning Commission passed Resolution 2501 recommending what you have in your packet tonight. However, our legal team needs a little bit more time to review, and they do, as I understand, have some substantive changes that they're going to ask us to make before we introduce. And so staff is requesting that you go ahead and take public comment tonight, open that public hearing, and then continue the item to March 19th to give us the opportunity to make those changes that are recommended by legal. Be happy to answer any questions, but otherwise I suggest you open it to the public and continue it to the 19th.
Thank you.
The only problem I have to moving it to the 19th is that I don't think Councilmember Atkins Salazar is going to be there. And
will you be on Zoom?
I would love to have the full council for that discussion.
I'll be on Zoom on the 5th, but I will be absent on the 19th.
19th.
Does it have to be the 19th?
Possibly we could change it to.
Can we do the 5th or the first meeting in April?
You'd like to wait till a later date?
I'd like to wait until we have a full council.
Yeah, we can do the first meeting in April, which would be the April 2nd meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, Stace. I want you there for that.
I just wanted to say, I know
We
that.
were going to open public hearing.
Okay.
So let's open public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this at this time? Hearing no one, I'm closing public hearing. Is there anyone, well, I should ask, anyone on Zoom for public hearing on this item?
No, there's nobody on Zoom.
Okay, so I'm closing the public hearing. And so we'll have to have a motion to move this to our.
Could I make a comment first?
Yes.
Thank you. So the current threshold was moved to 30, is that correct? I mean, originally we had it at 15, and I know that we were, both Sarah and I had preferred that. And I understand, I think that's good because we want to build. I just wanted to mention that, with the closing of our funding resources from the development agencies, that we're looking for new ways to fund that. And the Community Development Finance Institution, sounds like we have some local good news coming our way. So I'm excited about that. I guess we'll hear about that hopefully soon. And I'm hoping that we can revisit then at a later date the threshold if possible.
I believe the Planning Commission is the one that recommended a 30.
Yeah, the thresholds came from your last study session with the Planning Commission. That was directed by the council to make the threshold 30. But when you introduce the ordinance, you'll have an opportunity to make any changes that you wish to make at that time.
Cool, so I'd like to make a motion to continue this agenda item until the first meeting of April.
Which is April 2nd.
I will second to take it to the second.
Can I interrupt before the vote? Just with continuing the public hearing, I just need to make sure it's to a date, time, and location certain. So would that be April 2nd?
April 2nd.
6 p.m. in the council chamber?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I
Thank
second
you.
that still.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have has anyone second that motion? Twice. Thank you, Sarah. I can hardly hear you, but thank you. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, those opposed, motion carries. So now we're going to go into oral and written communications, and the council values your comments, and the public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. The council may respond to statements. So now we have public comment. Anyone would like to speak during public comment? Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Joanne McGarry. I am a bit of hard of hearing, so I am getting new hearing aids, but I appreciate our city clerk providing me with the one and only headset that is currently available for people who need this assistance, which reminds me that a discussion has taken place a while back about other needs of other people to participate as a member of the public at these meetings, which I think is vitally, vitally important. And that's one of the reasons I come as often as I do, because if other people aren't here, at least I'm here to maybe stand up and say something that I think some members of the public might want to be said. So I'm thinking we should look at language translation, childcare, somehow to transport people who can't drive at night to these things, more of these hearing assist things. It's something to look at to make this a very democratic and accessible thing. And it's been brought up by not just me, but there was a hearing impaired person many meetings ago who spoke about the challenges, which brings me to say also, please everybody speak clearly into your mic, because even with this assist, it's sometimes hard to hear you for some reason. So that's that. I went to the city of Eureka yesterday to their city council meeting because I kind of thought that I'd like to see, because I had seen some of them at the Monday courthouse event, and I was telling them about my efforts to make Arcata a peaceful, nonviolent, compassionate place by our joining some international groups. And they expressed an interest in my sharing with them that concept, and I will be doing so in writing, but I spoke up about it out loud at their meeting last night. Because one of the things I really think is important for us to realize is that everything's connected all around the world, you know, through our community. It was earlier mentioned the concept of character. And so I just really, again, want to encourage our representatives here, if you at all are interested in having me work with you so that we can become Arcata the peaceful, nonviolent, compassionate place that we all really, I think, deep inside want us to be. Compassion, particularly compassion, because if you have compassion, then, you know, the other things come along. So again, please speak to me about your willingness to go ahead with this or not.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, greetings, Mayor, City Council of Arcata. My name is Luta Belcher, and I came to you from Eureka. I was born in Arcata, and I'm actually quite proud of that. I'm coming to address the issue of having a sister city with Gaza, and a city in Gaza. And I just must say that this comes at a particularly interesting time as the bodies of the Bibas family are being returned. As we all know about the events of October 2023, October 7th, these people were filmed by their abductors. And the people who abducted them were not Hamas, they were not Islamic Jihad, they were citizens of Gaza. We don't know what happened to them, but they didn't come back alive. I think at this time, to propose such a idea could be out of compassion, but it's so misplaced. And we have to ask ourselves, what exactly is a sister city? Would we want to have contact with the citizens? Would they want to have contact with us? And what are you getting into at this point? I also would like to share with you that as a Hebrew, as a Jew, I lived in Israel at the time of the withdrawal, 2005. And my family lived in the areas that were attacked. Some of them had to fight off the attackers and killed people, and some of their friends were killed. They don't want this. And it's not a war conflict like this isn't about right or wrong, but what I could tell you is that maybe a wiser idea in the future would maybe find an Arab city like Susia in Israel. 2 million Arab citizens in Israel, if you want to do that. That's one suggestion. But I think it's most unwise to go on with this decision. And I strongly encourage you to stay away from this, not at this time. Maybe in a brighter time, a brighter future. I remain optimistic as a Jew. The world can be better. Even the worst of times and the best of times, the world can always be better. I'm quite proud of that. But as a resident of Humboldt County, again, born in Arcata, I think this is quite disagreeable and disgraceful, and it's misplaced compassion, if I may say so. I'm sorry to talk to you like that, but I just want to tell you. On a lighter note, this week's Torah portion, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of Mishpatim, Judgment. Jonathan Sachs says the world was not created out of justice, it was created out of compassion. And I respect compassion very much. Arcata's a good town. You guys stop at your four-way stops. In Eureka, we go right through them. So maybe as cities, we can come together and focus on things that can help our community. Wish you success in everything, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hello, hello. Okay, so the name is Jeffrey Harris. I was born in Sacramento and spent 3 years in Eureka. I do not officially speak for the Jewish community. Though all four of my mother's grandparents were Russian Ashkenazi, my dad's side was mostly British and German. So, after the False-Justinian perpetrated pogrom of October 7th, 2025, I saw local leftists siding with the Islamic terrorists. They have been inimical for over 1,400 years, even before most of Europe became Christian. Thus, I was discouraged from supporting the Democratic Party due to the association with what may be called cultural Marxists, including the Islamic jihadists of Arcata. And that was one of the reasons why I actually did vote for Donald Trump. So unsurprisingly, some locals have been protesting the second inauguration of Trump and are carrying the Palestinian flags as they do so. I'm pleased now that Trump is aiming to put an end to the Palestinian project, at least in Gaza, a project which exists only to oppose the establishment of the one Jewish state in the world. 3 relevant characteristics that define the contemporary left are the selectivity of their outrage, the anti-Semitic mirror effect, and their psychology. 22 states compose the Arab League, and 19 the Arab world, in which Arabs make up at least a plurality of the population. Jordan, a Palestinian state, was given a much larger share of the British mandate for Palestine than Israel is given. The contemporary leftists support the Palestinians and the Muslims more generally in destroying all the Jews by engaging in Islamic jihad globally. One of their favorite chants, globalize the intifada, means exactly that. Furthermore, that statement is a declaration of war and has been taken as such, that is received, heard, understood, and acknowledged as meaning that. Now, in a number of conflicts around the world, some of the people have been killed, but the left is nearly exclusively concerned with those that involve the Israelis. These radical leftist peaceniks were not asked to ceasefires in Congo, Sudan, and Ukraine. They want only one country, namely Israel, to be destroyed. The anti-Semitic mirror effect is a type of repression and projection. Whatever is considered to be morally, culturally, socially, economically wrong, evil among the intolerant population is ascribed to the Jews. That has been usury, communism, exploitative capitalism in the case of the contemporary far left, occupation, settled colonialism, apartheid. Things that were folks from Western Europe did in Americas, Australia, and Africa. Rather, the conflict between the Arab Muslims and Israel is not a colonial nor even a territorial conflict so much as an age-old religious and ideological one in which both sides have roots in their region. However, only Israel has the historical and archaeological record of having an organized presence there dating well back in the second millennium BC. Politically incorrect people are generally covert narcissists. The pro-Palestinians tend to be liberal female pretending with low intelligence. What they don't know, but time soon tells, is their cause is through. In closing, Rabbi Meir Kahane was right. So are Baruch Marzel, Meg Golan, Itamar Ben-Javir, and Bezalel Smotrich.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Yes. Tamara, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm going to read what I said, okay? For 502 days, I've listened to the rhetoric, I've listened to the demonizing of my people, my country, my home. By who? By people who only have one thing in common. They cannot stand the state of Israel has a right to exist. Yet, I've also listened to your silence. In all the time, I've never heard anyone from the city acknowledge that the words and action by anti-Semitic people disguised as anti-Zionists were obviously intended to get a reaction and potentially create anger and hurt, not once. Yet somehow, the calls for the destruction of Israel and expulsions of Zionists, words filled with hate and violence, were not considered provocative. Those words were tolerated, those words were normalized. But when I stand here and say I'm a proud Zionist, suddenly that is controversial. Suddenly, this is offensive. Tabitha Miller, acting as a city manager, speaking about the Zionist billboard, said it was obviously intended to get a reaction and potentially create anger and hurt. When terrorists are called freedom fighter, no one objects. When people glorified who murder, rape, burn, butcher women, children, infants, men, young and old, this is defended as a free speech. But when I stand for a fair, socialist-based democracy, a country that protects human rights, religious freedom, and equality is dismissed, is condemned. So I ask you, why is freedom of speech only available for some? Why is it one side can incite hate, can openly call for the destruction of nation, and it is met with a silence, or worse, with applaud? But when others simply affirm their identity, their history, their right to exist, it met with outrage. Yes, the city manager is biased and carries a double standard for a free speech. Free speech cannot be one street. It can be, if we believe in it, we must protect it for all. If we value justice, we must condemn hypocrisy. If we stand for truth, we cannot be afraid to speak it. So tonight, and especially tonight, I'm speaking it loudly, proudly, unapologetically, because no matter how many days pass, I'll not be silenced, and the billboard will be up in just a few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on Zoom?
Yes, call-in user 1, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Call-in user 1, you may have to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you. Finally. In my previous comment to the City Council, I used the punching up, punching down idiom, and that offended some people or confused some people. I chose the punching idiom because it emphasizes the bullying aspect of the city continuing to try to move the problems of the indigent to a neighborhood that will soon have a mental health ward at Mad River Hospital serving the entire county, already has 2 converted motels for the hardcore homeless, most from out of the area, a halfway house, until recently a needle exchange, and what has been a traditionally lax attitude by authorities for camping abuses to environmentally sensitive areas. Valley West already has residents that are closest to becoming homeless themselves compared to the rest of Arcata. We have more impoverished, elderly, disabled, and minority than the rest of Arcata. And now we have a huge percentage of the recently housed and recovering. What a coincidence then that this is the convenient neighborhood on which to foist bullying, to foist even more homeless services. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. By encouraging a concentration of mental health and homeless services here in Valley West, you stand to create more homelessness from the people that are already housed. But that's okay as long as the more affluent parts of Arcata don't have to deal with it, I suppose. Move these services to affluent neighborhoods where they will have less of an impact on residents' lives. That many of you may find that unlikely proves my point. Arcata needs to live up to its liberal values and take a reasoned, holistic approach to serving the unhoused, rather than sweeping them under the red-lined Valley West rug. Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, Sarai, please go ahead.
Hey. Oh, it's been a little while, you guys. I just absolutely wanted to categorically and just like unequivocally, just like in general, like just like mention how many deep breaths like I've had to take. I hope y'all are taking deep breaths too. Like I hope there's been hydration. Yeah, speaking to all the different like reports that have gone on, and reading, following up on some of those reports, like thinking about like the police not even mentioning like the uproar, things happening with our community members on the plaza, not even mention that, the fire department not even mentioning the loss of life. I guess the fire was mentioned in the end. Like the woman who came up to talk about the flooding, like it just seems very much like y'all are super willing to go like over broad details, but you're not willing to look into the things that are actually like bothering neighbors, except, you know, Tamar always, but I really just like, I wasn't even gonna say anything. I've been like on city council meetings all week. And it's just really, really, really interesting. Like the fact that somebody can come up and talk about flooding, and there has had to come to 2 city council meetings to talk about this flooding. But then one city council member can talk about like, oh, I was just looking on Zillow. I just happened to think about this. Like, let's put it on the agenda. Like the urgency with which and the access that you guys have to these agenda items and moving these calendars around and giving people 3 minutes versus 2 minutes. And, you know, thank goodness you made the point about people's rights already getting taken away. That would have been a terrible thing for you guys to do. But it's just really, really interesting. I just would encourage folks to look more into the things that are like community members are actually saying. These reports are a slap in the face. Like these reports really are tricky for us to listen to. They're tricky for us to hear. And then we have to wait in the end, and there's like Zionists on there talking about the billboard's going to be back up. Like, Jesus Christ. I just really want you to know. I really want you to know. I hadn't been coming. It had gotten honestly too much. But I'm back now, and I feel like I really, really, really like need to be around again, because if oh geez, like come on. And then to have you guys talk about like that you've now made a new thing for decorum and stuff. Like, are you going to talk to Tamara about this decorum? Is she going to be Like, what are are there sanctions for city council? Like, what is it going to be? Like, if tomorrow's a Zionist and spouting hateful hate, like, is something going to be done at this point? Like, I'm super confused. Or is it only for your guys' safety and protection? Like, only for your guys' comfortability? Like, people are out here working super hard, and it feels like y'all take 2 steps forward to take like 1,000,000 steps back. And it's really frustrating, bud. Like, it's really frustrating. Like,
Thank you very much for your comment. Do we have another speaker?
No, there's no more hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. So dates of future meetings, would you like to discuss?
I just wanted to make a point that we have said in the beginning now that we are not calling out other community members by names when we make public comment, and I just want to make sure that we're not doing that. Thank you.
We aren't. We haven't. I'm sorry?
Somebody just did.
Oh, well, she did, yes. Okay. So, do you want to deal with dates of future meetings? Do we have any dates besides our regular council meetings?
We have our regular council meetings coming up on March 5th and March 19th.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no closed sessions. We have no closed session reports. And so that means we can adjourn the meeting. And thank you all.